Honorable Herman Daniels Jr., Honorable Herman Daniels Jr., Honorable Mark Freeland, Honorable Mark Freeland, Honorable Pernell Halona, Honorable Pernell Halona, Honorable Jamie Henio, Honorable Jamie Henio, Honorable Vince James, Honorable Vince James, Honorable Ricky Nez, Honorable Ricky Nez, Honorable Carl Slater, Honorable Carl Slater, Honorable Raymond Smith Jr., Honorable Raymond Smith Jr., Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr., Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr., Honorable Charlene So, Honorable Charlene So, Honorable Daniel So, Honorable Daniel So, Honorable Eugene So, Honorable Eugene So, Honorable Otto So, Honorable Otto So, Honorable Thomas Walker Jr., Honorable Thomas Walker Jr., Honorable Edison Juanica, Honorable Edison Juanica, Honorable Edmund Yazzie, Honorable Edmund Yazzie, Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair, Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair, going back up again, beginning with Honorable Elmer Begay, Honorable Elmer Begay, Honorable Elmer Begay has not answered roll call. Honorable Key Allen Begay Jr., Honorable Key Allen Begay Jr., Honorable Key Allen Begay Jr. has not answered roll call. Honorable Paul Begay, Honorable Paul Begay, Honorable Paul Begay has not answered roll call. Honorable Nathaniel Brown,
Delegate Brown is present.
Honorable Nathaniel Brown has answered roll call. Honorable Herman Daniels Jr., Honorable Herman Daniels Jr., Honorable Mark Freeland, Honorable Mark Freeland, Honorable Herman Daniels Jr. and Honorable Mark Freeland have not answered roll call. Honorable Pernell Halona, Honorable Pernell Halona, Honorable Jamie Henio, Honorable Jamie Henio, Honorable Pernell Halona and Jamie Henio have not answered roll call. Honorable Vince James,
Delegate James,
Honorable,
present.
good morning. Honorable Vince James has answered roll call. Honorable Rick Nez, Honorable Rick Nez, Honorable Rick Nez has not answered roll call. Honorable Carl Slater, Honorable Carl Slater, Honorable Carl Slater has not answered roll call. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr., Honorable Raymond Smith Jr., Honorable Raymond Smith Jr. has not answered roll call. Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr. Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr. Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr. has not answered roll call. Honorable Charlene So. Honorable Charlene So. Honorable Charlene So has not answered roll call. Honorable Daniel So. Honorable Daniel So. Honorable Daniel So has not answered roll call. Honorable Eugene So.
Of course, Street. So, thank you.
Honorable Eugene So has answered roll call. Honorable Odo So. Honorable Odo So has answered roll call and is present here in the chamber. Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. has not answered roll call. Honorable Edison Juanita. Honorable Edison Juanita. Honorable Edison Juanita has not answered roll call. Honorable Edmund Yazzie. Honorable Edmund Yazzie. Honorable Edmund Yazzie has not answered roll call. Lastly, Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair has not answered roll call. So with that, Honorable Speaker, you have 7 delegates who have answered roll call and 17 who haven't answered roll call.
Thank you very much. With that, colleagues, we have 7 members present. We don't need a quorum here at a work session, so let's continue on down. Thank you very much for being with us, colleagues, again. And everybody listening in, again, good morning. Thank you for being with us on this important topic that we're going to be talking about today, and that's going to be primarily about power line infrastructure. But before we get there, I know that we did have an invocation by Honorable Paul Begay this morning there at the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee meeting. So we'll go ahead and utilize that. Thank you, Honorable Begay, for blessing the day and giving us the blessing in order to continue our work sessions and continue and pray for the nation. So with that, colleagues, let's go ahead and continue on down to item number 2, recognizing guests and visiting officials. Is there any recognitions this morning, colleagues?
Speaker, this is Delegate Brown.
Yes, good morning, Honorable Brown.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Speaker, Ado 24th Navajo Nation Council. Ado to all our staff. Good morning. I wanted to recognize a young Navajo gentleman who is doing great things. He recently got published, and I know a lot of people are reading his book. His name is Brian Young, and he just recently published The Healer of the Water Monster. And I was just reading the books, and it's, as leadership, we were always thinking about how we can help our people. And this book reminds us of who we are. The Neni Kini Ado Kedit Nini Ado Kitlajopa. It talks about basically our way of life, giving offerings. And we made it to another day. Early this morning was the eclipse. So it's really good to hear prayers throughout Navajo from our medicine people, our medicine women. I especially want to thank Shamabadishno Rita Gilmore from Chinle area, who sang songs with all the other medicine people during the eclipse. And we were reverent and humble, and some of us didn't sleep, and we stayed up, woke up early, stayed up and said our prayers. So that's enough. She to hatsa. She nasa dinil dinona deni kata less no kat than any klinigi. On behalf of the 24th Navajo Nation Council, we see you, we hear you, and Ashin Hisho. Nane kato less si hudin sindo. Askansi kisole. Ahansoda, thank you. Again, Speaker. On behalf of 24th Navajo Nation Council, appreciation to Mr. Brian Young and to Rita Gilmore and all the others who are doing great things, who bring a lot of hope and resiliency and strength back to Navajo. So we'll continue that. And there is a lot more people doing wonderful things. Yeah, thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much, and look forward to that, reading that book. Thank you to recognizing the young individual. Maybe we'll get a copy of that and have the 24th sign and send it back to him. With that, let's continue on down. If there's no other recognizing guests and visiting officials. 2, item number 3, the work session topic. Again, colleagues, and everyone listening, we're continuing our American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 work sessions, and today's we did have a follow-up, or we are going to have a follow-up today on our power line infrastructure presentations. We do have NTUA, APS, or Arizona Public Service, Hayes Mountain Electric Co-op, Connell Divide Electric Co-op, and Socorro Electric Co-op, and then the city of Farmington in the lineup here. I'm going to go to each presentation individually and then ask if there's any questions from each one of them individually. So I know that we did ask and we did have a follow-up meeting with the co-ops, and I know NTUA has an updated presentation to give to us too as well. Did we get anything yet, Mr. Rico, from anyone?
Yeah. I sent out NTUA, Famous, Continental, and Socorro
Oh, what time?
at around
NTUA, who else?
all the co-ops.
Okay.
Famous,
It looks like we sent out those presentations, and presentations from all the presenters that was sent out at 10:18 this morning. So colleagues, you do have those presentations, and to the presenters, if you're going to share your screen, you're more than welcome to share your screen when you're doing your presentation. If not, if you need assistance, we can do it on our side, but just let us know. Without further ado, let's go ahead and continue on to our first presenter. We have NTUA, Navajo Tribal Utility Authority. I don't know who's on the line from NTUA. Is it Mr. Rex Kuntz or maybe Arash? But
yes.
The floor is yours.
Okay. Yes, Speaker Damon and members of the 24th Navajo Nation Council. This is Arash Nathan Wiley. Tohalini Nishle, Persian Clan Bashishi, Kiani Dashiche, and Persian Clan Dashanali. It's an honor and a privilege to be in front of you once again to present NTUA's, I'll call it the prioritized 36-month American Rescue Plan Act, project listing and project summary. I know that Mr. Coots presented yesterday on the water, wastewater, and we received feedback from the Navajo Nation Council, 24th Council, and today is going to be for electric capacity projects, electric connections, and also solar, off-grid solar units. I did provide the presentation this morning to the council and also to Ms. Sherilyn Yazzie and to Speaker. And I just wanted to make sure that everyone just received the copy of the NTUA updated prioritized project listing.
Oh, yes, yes, Arash, we did, and that was sent out to our colleagues, or to my colleagues.
Very good.
So
okay.
Everybody has that. So again, if you want to share your screen throughout it, you're more than welcome to, Arash.
Let me see if I can figure this out. Okay, join without video. Hold on, I'm sorry. Let me see. Okay, I'm trying to figure out how to share my screen. Okay, let me see if I could share my screen. I apologize. Give me 1 minute, please. Share. Okay, please let me know if you see the screen.
Yep, we see
Okay.
3-year 36 project listing.
That is correct. Okay. Yes. So in front of you is the NTUA 36-month prioritized project listing. So as Speaker Damon mentioned earlier in the work session, NTUA initially, starting off, what we did is initially we looked at what we can complete in the next 36-month period. And in early April, we prepared that list and we got it together. And that total number, the total original request or the project listing was approximately $645 million. And just to be clear, that listing was essentially projects that NTUA determined to be feasible and projects that we believed we can complete within the 36-month period of time within ARPA. Now, we understand ARPA goes, through 2024, maybe a little bit, there could be extensions, but we prepared it as a 36-month project summary and project listing. And for the electric projects, that added up to $645 million. The original request was about $75 million for electric power line projects, about $530 million for electric capacity projects, and approximately $39 million for NTUA off-grid solar units and other electric power line projects. Now, I just want to be clear also too, for this listing, in CARES Act, what NTUA did is we collaborated and partnered with other co-ops and utilities that serve Navajo, i.e. APS, CDC, Jimenez Mountain Electric Co-op, and Socorro Electric Co-op. And what we did is with the NTUA funding or allocation of funding, we essentially are contracted with those other utilities and co-ops so that they can provide electric connections to their customers in their service territory on Navajo. So that's what we did as far as the same idea with the American Rescue Plan Act. We allocated funds within our plan for providing and contracting with those other utilities and co-ops to serve Navajo homes. And based on feedback and information provided, with the Treasury and whatnot, we understand that, the nation, our total plan for all utilities was approximately $1.2 billion. And we understood that, NTUA is not going to get, we don't believe we'll get $1.2 billion because, the nation has an allocation and, the money is, there's a limited amount of money available. So what we did is we prioritized our listing. We went through all of our projects and we prioritized our listing across the board through broadband, water, wastewater, and electric. And we came up with the prioritized 36-month listing. So one thing of note on this listing is we didn't take away any funds, any funding that would provide a direct connection to a home or a family. So if you look at the electric connections, it's the same dollar amount because when we did our prioritization for NTUA, our top priority was providing direct connections to homes through water, through wastewater, through electric connections, and through off-grid solar units. So we didn't take any money out from the direct connections to homes and powering up homes or, providing water to homes. What we did prioritize and prioritize is on the electric capacity projects. So if you look at the capacity projects, NTUA's original request was about $531 million. And we reduced that to approximately $158 million. And those capacity projects are related to improvements to our system to make sure that we can provide reliable service, i.e. improvements to substations, improvements, pole changeouts across the Navajo Nation, transformer changeouts, recloser changeouts, and just general improvements to our system to make sure that our system is reliable and we can provide those services. So those are our electric capacity projects, and that's the majority of the reduction in prioritization in our plan on the electric NTUA electric side. So now with the new plan, I'll call it the prioritized plan, NTUA's total listing amount is $271,574,661. And I can go into detail if you like, Speaker Damon, on the different areas. But what we did in our preparation is, once again, we identify projects in electric capacity. We try to break it down by chapter and region. So if you can look through the listing, you can see specific projects that we've identified. I did want to mention on the electric connections and the off-grid solar units, for those areas, we did identify, so for example, with the NTUA power line project and electric connections, we anticipate that if we receive funding, we can connect 1,125 Navajo homes to the electric grid in the first 12-month period. And in the next 12-month period, we believe we can connect 1,325 homes. And in the last 12-month period, 1,475 homes. So, if NTUA receives funding, we anticipate that we can connect 3,925 homes, Navajo homes, to the electric grid. And just to be clear, that includes using our funds to, using the NTUA funds and contracting with the other co-ops and utilities as well. As a collaborative effort, we believe we can connect 3,925 Navajo homes to the electric grid through ARPA. And I just want to be clear that for this electric connection plan, we haven't identified all of the 3,925 homes. So what we're doing now is we're soliciting applications. We're soliciting assistance from chapters and leadership to provide us names and information of families that don't have electricity, and providing that to the districts, the NTUA districts, so that we can, they can fill out an application and we can review their application and determine if it's feasible for NTUA and the other utilities and co-ops to connect these families to the electric grid. So we're going through that process right now, currently, to solicit more applications and more names across the Navajo Nation. And that goes the same with the off-grid solar units. If you might recall, for the off-grid solar units, NTUA, through the CARES Act, installed and commissioned 300 off-grid solar units. And if you look at the NTUA 36-month project listing, we are projecting that in the first 12 months we can install and commission 255 off-grid solar units. In the next 12 months, 300 off-grid solar units, and then in the final 12 months, 350 off-grid solar units, for a total of 900 off-grid solar units through the American Rescue Plan. So this is a high-level summary of our prioritized listing of projects. As you can see, we're trying to do our best to respect the fact that we know that the nation is receiving should receive a certain amount of money, and we're trying to make sure that we prioritize our projects and fit in line with the nation's plan as well. So this is our plan, and NTUA will stand for any questions that may be asked by the council or the speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Arash. Thank you very much for the breakdown, and thank you very much for the presentation, an updated presentation. And this is the one I think we'll be putting together in a bigger portfolio to be presented back to the council. So with that, colleagues, let me go ahead and go to the floor at this time. I don't have anybody in the queue. If there's any questions right now to Arash on anything regarding the presentation on NTUA. Colleagues,
Speaker, this is Delegate.
Yes, Madam Chair. Charles Newton, is that you?
Yes, it is.
Okay, Madam Chair, let me put you. Let me go to you first, Madam Chair. Charles Newton, then Honorable Otto, then Vice Chair Smith. That's the queue now. Madam Chair, Charles Newton. Good morning. Floor is yours.
Good morning, Speaker, and thank you, NTUA, for this presentation. So I guess my quick question is, how do you determine, which projects are eligible for your electric power line projects? 2, can you give me information on what the electric capacity project is, and how does that differ from the power line project or the I guess because you have NTUA off-grid solar units. So if I can get a little bit more clarification on what that process is, what it covers, and then what you look at to determine whether homes are eligible for any one of these projects. So if I could get a little bit more information on that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me go back to Arash for that response.
Sure. And Madam Chair, Charles Newton, thank you for the question. So on the electric connections, the eligibility, I'll call it the criteria, is NTUA looks for homes that are within a mile of a current electric distribution line. And this is specifically, I want to be clear, let me see, go back to page 1. If you go to the electric power line projects and the electric connections, that's what we're looking at right there. So specifically for electric connections and power line projects, we're looking for the criteria is if families or homes are within a mile of a current electric distribution line, then we try to, we encourage those families and homes to submit applications. There is a criteria for and requirements for the applications, and this is a standard Navajo Nation process as far as home site lease and other requirements. But that's the criteria from NTUA is we look at homes within a mile of a current electric distribution line. And then what we do on the NTUA off-grid solar units is these are for families or homes that are more than a mile away. And the reason being is that if you have a home, an electric service directly, with an electric connection is better and cheaper than an off-grid solar unit. So if you have an electric connection directly to either NTUA distribution system, electric system, or electric co-op, or a APS or City of Farmington, you have a better electric service, and it's actually also cheaper overall as far as operation, maintenance, and just overall quality of service. So we encourage and we try to connect as many families directly to the grid. However, if there's families that are farther and more remote, let's say 2 to 3 miles away from a power line, or even 5 miles away, we look at those families in homes and we determine if they're eligible for an off-grid solar unit. So what we did last time with the off-grid solar units, there are 3 kilowatt powered off-grid solar unit. What we did last time also too is through the CARES Act is we had an energy efficient refrigerator that was part of the package, house wiring, and making sure that there's enough switches and house wiring through the home to power up the home. And so that's kind of the criteria, and I hope I was at least somewhat clear. But really, the electric connections are more focused on families and homes that are close to a power line, and the off-grid solar units are focused on families that are farther away from a power line. As far as the electric capacity projects versus the power line projects, electric capacity is just the main system that we're talking about there, as far as the poles, the transformers, the reclosers, all of the information that transmits the power through our system. So for electric capacity, those aren't direct connections to families or homes. That's just to make sure we have our system is reliable. The operation maintenance is reliable enough to provide service to our Navajo people. So those are the difference between the 3. And also too, as I stated earlier, the applications, there is an application for, they call it a Light Up Navajo. We call it a Light Up Navajo application. And really what that is the Light Up Navajo application is the same as getting an application for electric service. And those are available at the districts. So if you want to tell, your chapter leadership or constituents, if they don't have power, or if they know someone that doesn't have power, they can fill out an application at the district. And we also have solar applications that we're soliciting as well for off-grid solar units. So the district should be able to help as far as with the families and homes with which application to fill out. And the criteria is laid out in the applications as well.
Thank you, Rush. That, let me continue on down. Honorable Otto, so good morning. Floor is yours.
Good morning, Speaker. Other members of the Navajo Nation Council. I did Arash for your report, and we did receive your report and some of the information we received. I did review some of them last night, and especially your water connection and so forth are really concerning. But today's relating to power. And what I'm getting to is that in my community, we have the APS power there in Tuba City that has power lines in Tuba City. And then you have NTUA on the outskirts of Tuba City. And just to see the basic, I guess, preliminary numbers is disturbing. See that these numbers are low. I'm not too sure if these numbers are accurate. Also, I don't really see much about off-grid solar for my area in Tuba City, and then especially in the north portion of Tuba City. You know, it's where NTUA has their towers up, and you have grazing permit holders that sign off on your grazing on your towers up there. And but yet I think none of my constituents up there that signed off on NTUA grazing are probably not even considered up there for off-grid solar. So I would like to have that conversation for the off-grid solar up in Tuba City region, north of Tuba City. There's an area in between there that has a dark zone. I do agree that not much people live up there, but there's some homes up there. The Grahams, the John families, and the Denesso, and Tissinis. And we have people living out there and just wondering how NTUA is going to reach them with the off-grid solar, because this is something that I'm banking on, and I was hoping that NTUA would really aggressively try to reach out to these people during the CARES Act. But apparently, you know, we're racing with time, and I'm just not too sure how much of technical assistance has been put out into that area from NTUA, meaning getting one of your engineering technicians to try to sweep the area up there to see how many homes need solar. And just off the top of my head, I can count about 8 homes that would require off-grid solars. And this is something that I really want NTUA to look at, because those permit holders are very, very vital to NTUA or any towering that goes on, tower right-of-way request that's needed on top of Preston Mesa. The nation's raking in lease dollars from there, but those individuals that sign off on those grazing permits, grazing permit holders that sign off on the lease, they're really not benefiting from it. And it's really sad to see that infrastructure, the basic infrastructure, is not being proposed for them. I know we had a conversation at one point that has NTUA did a feasibility study within the region of North Tuba City, prospectively in the Preston Mesa region and up towards the community of Gap Ottaway, because Tuba City boundary is a vast area up on the north sector of the boundary of Tuba City. We have people that live up there off the grid, and somehow we need some sort of feasibility study from the local office there at NTUA so that they could identify the homes that are out there that could be serviced with the off-grid solar. And but this is my pitch. But I look forward to the conversation, and not only for Tuba City, all areas on the Navajo Nation as these dollars come in. And I know we have some dollars that's left over from the CARES Act also. I believe we need to somewhat address those dollars to redirect that 40 some odd million dollars that have been reverted back to the pot related to the CARES Act. And then we know that we have other resources coming in from the Alaskan Native tribes lawsuit, and those dollars should be coming in also. And we need to prepare for a vast area for the individuals that live off the grid so that they could at least get power out there. And but those are just some of my thoughts that I have. Again, thank you for your presentation. Go back on mute.
Thank you. Let me go ahead and continue on down to Vice Chair Smith, and then I do have Honorable Charlene So in the queue and down too. So good morning. Honorable Vice Chair Smith, floor is yours.
Yeah, Speaker, thank you. And good morning, Arsh, for the presentation. The question that's always posed to me every time I go to these meetings in my chapters is when we get an electricity. But I appreciate the fact that there was CARES money that was provided and utilized in the Tlagato area. It's known as Salt Springs. We did a visit out there, and folks out there were really happy. And what I would like to say is that folks are really appreciative about that, and they thank you highly about getting electricity. And that was something that they've been waiting for quite some time. However, on the other hand, folks that were supposed to be hooked up in the Salt Springs area too are still waiting patiently. And I know that I spoke about this yesterday about putting projects that are already funded, are ready to be shovel ready, will be put on the back burner, and we'll be concentrating on the ARPA funds to get these things going. I don't want to see that happen. And I know that IHS mentioned that, saying, yes, Mr. Smith, that's basically what's going to happen. And I'm hoping NTUA doesn't fall into that category. But I appreciate the fact that you guys outsourced and got volunteers and Light Up Navajo and things like that to get our constituents necessary electricity out there for them. I'd like to question on behalf of the list of names, and it only seems like I've only got 3 projects on there. One of them is the Houck transfer station, and that's an NTUA project, and I was hoping that more of these ARPA money would go to direct services of people. Pine Springs needs electricity, Burnt Water, Carino Canyon area, south of I-40 out towards Newland area. There's folks that need electricity. They're still waiting. And down south of Allentown, and even all the way down towards south of Lupton and up to Wide Ruins area too. South of Wide Ruins, I keep hearing folks needing electricity out there. They're put on solar. Some are A-okay with it. Some are saying, no, we'd rather be connected to the grid. But I guess my question is, how do we get on that list? I mean, do we get a chapter resolution and support that? I know Boggy Lake is a big one. I got folks out there that are way off the grid, and they're still waiting patiently. And I talked to them about it, and they're saying that, yes, one of these days we hope that we get electricity out in Boggy Lake. That sort of connects with Wide Ruins and Klagetoh. That's west of Wide Ruins and southwest of Klagetoh, in the area that folks need in Gray Valley and Gray Cactus. And like I said, Salt Springs still needs to be completed. And north of Klagetoh needs electricity. East of Wide Ruins needs electricity towards Pine Springs. Those are the things that I'm wanting to report back to the chapter, that, you know, if I showed them this chart, there's only 3 areas, Houck and Wide Ruins and Klagetoh, but then Houck is just for the transfer station. Like I mentioned, these communities, we would really like to see electricity provided for them. And some are getting that attitude too, like, well, we used to be under Continental Divide and it was quicker service and services were rendered faster, and now we're subject to NTUA. That's what they're saying. And I know that we used to have Continental Divide down here, and services were provided down this area, but they're looking at maybe want to revert back, but you know, that's going to be another process later on down the road if they really want to. But I just want to bring this up to you, Arsh, and I'd like to get help for that. And like I said earlier, I really appreciate the fact that we did get CARES money appropriated the 11th hour, and it was way late. And I'm glad that you and Mr. Kuntz had provided that information, said, yes, we'll do it. And we got it done. And I'd like to see these things happen. And I know it's going to be more projects being piled on, but I want to speak for my people and make sure that we're not forgotten on behalf of the ARPA money for the folks that need these electricity. And the other one too is veterans out there. They're wanting to do a policy regarding housing, and in that policy it was stated that we encourage veterans to live along the grid. But of course, you know, that's only an encouragement. But most of us would like to live where we like to live, and sometimes we choose an area way out there beyond the grid, and I'm not sure if that's feasible cost-wise, but we got to consider them too, because our veterans are part of the community and they need services as well as our constituents too. So I don't want to forget our veterans and our elders and our children and those that are going to school that are still on COVID-19 that can't get out there and get to school and be in class as we would like them to be back to normalcy. But it's slowly, it gets gradually headed back that way. Hopefully we can overcome this, but electricity is really needed, and I'm sure you know that, Arsh, and I just want to present that, and hopefully we can get some projects in there through our chapter coordinators and chapter managers from the 5 chapters that I represent, and I'd like to make that known. I appreciate that, Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With that, colleagues, let me continue on down to Honorable Charlene So. Good morning, Honorable So. Floor is yours, and then after that, I'll come back to you, Arash, for any further follow-up. Honorable So, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ado. Good morning to the presenter, Ado, to my colleagues and everyone who is listening in. I've been listening now to the presentation. I have a concern that's aligned with Honorable Raymond Smith. I guess the main concern that I have at this point is homes that will be excluded from the grid and the possible listing. In that term, because I'm going to use an example. In my community of Mexican water, 200 homes that need updated house wiring. And I know that's solely the responsibility of the homeowners to get the house wiring updated and done in those homes. So if that's not done, are they going to be excluded, or is there any plans with NTUA to include that, to make sure that some of these homes are connected? And 200 homes, I know that some of our constituents just don't have the means of funding to take care of this, to hire an electrician. And with the funding that is at our chapter, there's just not enough to update more than 10 homes at a time. And so I was wondering if that's something or a plan that can be outlined for these homes across the reservation, if that can be included as well. And along with that line, you know, we're also talking about some of these, the septic, the water, some of those need to be updated as well. And what are some of those plans? I think at this point, there's so many homes across the reservation. We have some children, some constituents that move back since the pandemic has started, and they have pretty much settled into homes here nearby their relatives. Now, what are some of those, how can we get those included to have the homes built, or excuse me, to include these homes with the electric line? So I think that I would like again to work with NTUA to get these homes submitted on behalf of my 5 chapters, the way that we were able to work together with the CARES Act. And I know that so many are worried about how they may be included, and then as well as with the house wiring. Some, again, and then the other part, the second part of my question and concern is home site lease. What is there a potential of how would we be able to work around that, and then to provide some of these services to homes that are pending with home site leases? And is there another approach or a limited waiver until they present a home site lease? What can be done? That is my big concern at this point. Thank you, Speaker.
Speaker, weave me in.
Thank you, Honorable Charlene. So with that, let me go ahead and good morning, Honorable Eugene. So I'll put you in the queue. Let me go back to Arash, and then I'll come back to the floor. Arash, the floor is yours at this time for a response.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Speaker Damon, Delegate Otto So, Raymond Smith, and Charlene So, and I'm sorry, Charlene So. Delegate So, regarding the first question or the first comments, I'll provide some insight or just some feedback on some of the comments you made. You know, it's true with the CARES Act, NTUA had a limited time to build those projects. I'm just specifically talking about electric. You know, we were able to connect 737 Navajo homes to the electric grid within pretty much a 5-month period. And you know, one of the challenges we face right now, one of the things that we're talking about right now is essentially we're in construction season right now, and essentially, you know, we have over 100 projects that are ready to be built, over 200 service lines that are approved. So we're ready to go with these projects. However, you know, we don't have the funding right now. So we're, you know, as far as NTUA looking at it from a utilities perspective, you know, and I know the nation agrees with this, timing is of the essence, but you know, we're right now is pretty much prime construction season, and we're just waiting to go through the process. But we have homes ready to be built. Connections, homes ready to be connected to electricity. So we're just kind of going through the process and just kind of making sure we have enough, you know, just going through the process of getting as many homes ready for construction. So when we receive funding, we can start building those power lines. As far as the listing is concerned, on the project listing for the power lines and the off-grid solar units. I just want to state that there's many open slots that are available still for Navajo homes in your constituents and all constituents to apply for electric connections and off-grid solar units. And there's time and there's open slots. And what I mean by that is, if you look at year one, we're anticipating that NTUA can connect 1,125 families to the electric grid. If you look at the bottom, we have a slot that says locations not yet identified in year one. Oops, I'm sorry about that. We have 543 locations not yet identified. And what that means is we believe that our resources and our work crew can connect an additional 543 homes to the electric grid. However, we're still soliciting applications and going through feasibility studies and evaluations to make sure that we can get those homes added. So what we need, a request from NTUA is to work with the local leadership, with the delegates, with the chapter leadership, and with your constituents to get names and information of individuals who don't have power. And if it's an individual request, if there's a family that needs, a electric line connection, they can go to the district and fill out an application. And then those applications will be evaluated by the NTUA personnel. If it's a large-scale power line project that the chapter is requesting, that can go through Shannon Burnett or myself, and we can get that in the right hands and make sure we do the evaluation for those large-scale projects. So I just want to be clear that we haven't identified all the homes that are to be connected in each of your regions or each of your districts or chapters. We're still looking for and soliciting applications at this time currently. So that list, like I said, even on electric connections, we've identified 668 homes, and we expect to connect, if we receive funds, 3,925 homes. So there's essentially 3,300 open slots or locations not yet identified that we're looking to fill. So this is a moving list. This is a live list. So as we get more information, as we get more projects that have been determined to be feasible and homes that are determined to be feasible to receive electric connections, we'll add to the list. But, right now is the time pretty much to work with your local chapters, with NTUA district and myself and Shannon on the electric side to solicit additional homes in your areas so we can do the feasibilities on those homes. And I just want to be clear, that includes the electric connections and the off-grid solar units. We're doing that for both of them. So if you look at the off-grid solar units, we have 900 that we anticipate that we can complete or install and commission. And there's many open slots on the off-grid solar units as well. So I hope that answers, kind of provides some of the feedback that this is still an open process, and we're looking to get additional names and additional families to be added to the list. For Delegate Raymond Smith, the kind of the same idea, how to get on the list. For individuals, if you're in your area, if there's individuals that are looking to get power, they can go to the districts and fill out a Light Up Navajo application. And there's a certain criteria and requirements. And once they fill out that application, the NTUA district personnel will go through the process of evaluating that application. If it's a power line project or large scale project, Shannon Burnett and myself, if you send those requests to us, we can get those. We can work with the chapters on the feasibility of those projects and evaluate those projects on our side. And Delegate Charlene, I know you had a question about the house wiring. As within the CARES Act, NTUA included house wiring as part of the whole package for connections to homes. So we included house wiring. So if there was a home that didn't have house wiring, that was paid for through the CARES Act funds, and we're anticipating to do the same. So as part of the American Rescue Plan project listing in our proposal, it will include house wiring. If the home doesn't have house wiring, NTUA will work with local contractors to provide the house wiring. So what NTUA does on the house wiring side is NTUA doesn't do the house wiring itself. We contract that work out. I will say that with the CARES Act, we used Navajo contractors, electricians that are certified by the Navajo Nation Business Regulatory Department, and we contracted with them and paid them to provide the house wiring for these projects. So this is also helps out the local businesses as provide a service as part of these federal projects. I'll let Mr. Kuntz speak on a few other things if you don't mind, Speaker Damon.
Yes. Good morning, Mr. Kuntz. Floor is yours.
Rex, we can't hear you if you're speaking.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Okay, sorry about that. With regard to the house wiring and things like that, those old patterns of the chapters or the homeowner being responsible, we've gone beyond that and are going into the home and performing the house wiring now. And what we have done way back in time, we were asked to get out of house wiring because the small businessmen were feeling like we were dominating the market, so to speak. But what we did with CARES was we employed a bunch of those individual and smaller electrical companies and individual electricians, and we put those individuals to work rather than trying to find, qualify, or hire directly on NTUA's payroll. So we did put outside workforce, Navajo workforce, local, to work, and when we find that's a great combination, we're really considering finding a way to keep that going even beyond these special projects, because house wiring has always been one of the delays and shortcomings in making sure that a project gets constructed. So we're learning from this process some ways to make the systems work better. With regard to the other utilities, you may all recall that during the CARES Act, we did offer some of the allocation that we have. We take openly all applications, and they happen to fall in another utility service territory. We did fund those projects and work with those other utilities as they were prepping them so that those homes could be served. And we did serve quite a few. More than double-digit homes were done on other service territories. So as far as individual services, we are serving them. Honorable Smith asked about the process. Arish talked about the request coming to him and Shannon Burnett to start the feasibility process. But the traditional way is the chapter determines their constituents' needs, and they do a chapter resolution, and that starts the normal feasibility process. If they're more familiar with that's more than sufficient. Once we get that, we start action on it. Either way is the way of requesting a community project. The individual homeowner's access is direct application. So with regard to the solar, just so that everybody has a point of reference, prior to all these special projects, everyone was pushing for a power line to get there. Many of those requests were deemed not feasible or too far from a system to be feasible. So we're providing some guideline now that any home that's beyond 2 miles would be more solar eligible. And so for any of those projects that were deemed unfeasible, that's a way of measuring whether you should start converting those requests into off-grid solar projects. Typically, we did not routinely receive any specific off-grid solar projects. That's why you don't see a lot of those piled up or in the backlog. As everybody's recognizing here, I think now this council and chapters are starting to realize there are people that are too far from the grid. There's clusters of homes that could be eligible, and individual homes that could be eligible for solar, and we should start focusing on that in peculiarity to request those projects as renewable or off-grid solar projects. And I think that will kind of get that ball rolling with that as a new viable service now that there's strong recognition that is an option. In the CARES Act, we did focus on and setting aside a certain number of slots for veterans, and we have something similar in the ARPA request, so we will make sure that those veterans are prioritized and moved in the process to ensure they stay included if they're feasible, or to offer them alternative services. So we just wanted to clarify a little bit more about our offer to the other utilities to partner with them, our proactiveness in trying to get house wiring done so it's not a delay or a cause for unfeasibility, and for a stronger division between electric extensions and renewable projects. And home 2 miles away, let's turn it into a solar request. And for any individuals requesting, the application process is for them to get on the list. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me go ahead and go back to the floor then. I do have Honorable Caleb Gay, Honorable Alma Begay, and then Honorable Eugene So in the queue. Good morning, Che. Honorable Caleb Begay, the floor is yours.
Che, good morning. Ado kudo 24th Council that I see Tanagi yat epidin hidini do list. Speaker Ado Kudon Hisnahanaki from NTUA Arasha. Good morning. Ado Mr. Kuntz, good morning, and everyone else that are listening from the NTUA. I forward an email, has about 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 questions that could be answered back. If you can just, highlight it in red of your response so that I can share that with my chapters, because a lot of these are directly coming from the local chapter. First of all, Speaker, you heard about people or Navajo people living 2 miles away, off grid, unfeasible. I think the NTUA needs to change their attitude or position of how they label our Navajo people. NTUA is an enterprise to help the Navajo people in the boundary of the Navajo Nation, no matter what. I mean, if Khalid al Ecuador hitting the end Liniki, Bakite or what H.A. Bakaison's unfeasible orbit the Dabidet Nissa. Either they live off grid the Dabidet or Nakitsata. They don't know what you tabaran. Ito papa the Hanet Zad Niniki Yego Asher. The Navajo peoples, the Navajo people, and I will be demanding that they should be the first in line to get any assistance. If we're talking about mileage, how many miles have NTUA that had upgraded their main power line, their power source? And I believe these are the responsibility of the NTUA to upgrade their infrastructure. Just like what they're saying to the homeowners, this is their responsibility. And I will go as far and making sure that the NTUA changes their priority. And that's one of the questions that I pose, possibly reverse the year 1 and U3 construction. I indicated that I truly believe that our Navajo people should be first in line to get the needed electricity to their homes, and NTUA can later upgrade their infrastructure. So, of the 271 million phased out in 3 years, how much of that is directly going to benefit our Navajo people to get a new electricity, new one, no matter how far they live away from the existing power line? I think that should be the focus. That should be the focus. Okay, it's going to be so far away now that we're going to be getting funding. This should be a time to extend this power line to this individual that lives 4 miles, 5 miles, even 10 miles away. I mean, I think that should be the focus in the allocation of the funding now. I think we really need to pressure NTUA that these are our Navajo people that lives on the Navajo Nation and as of today don't have power line. So we should be able to pressure NTUA that these are the individuals that should be first on the line. And the other area, and the other question I posed was, how have they been communicating? I appreciate Ross that he has came up to, got on call with three of the chapters that we had opera funding meetings. But comparing to your listing, Ross, they're different. The listing that I have, and we shared, the one that we shared, for example, mini farms and others, they have more than 25 names, but on your listing, it has less than 10, I believe. So there still needs to be a coordination between the chapters that would need to provide their updated listing. There are people that needing power line within each community. Those are listening. Yes, we sure like to get sufficient power source with upgraded equipment, but getting the power line to an individual's home, should be the focus. And then, even though that they still have, even though they have a power line right now, a lot of them are outdated. There's several individuals from my community are being told, "Kung power line, kung power pole, eat it go." They got a new home, so the system that they got was outdated, and they were being told to pay more than $15,000. $15,000. Upgrade. This is coming from NTUA. So I think those are individuals that should be in line that can't afford to pay the $15,000, not $1,500, $15,000. So these are some areas that our Navajo people continues to go have situation with power line. And then the other one is right of way. The night of not and then asa. Dik at art clearance that NTUA in the so, but include that in these cost estimates. Akoko halate all the eight base of bandoche. And then I hear some of our Navajo people have disconnection because of outstanding bills. So, end it. Yes, I'm sure they got some fundings from CARES funding or hardship and so on. But I mean, from accumulations of bills, they're over $1,000 or something. But they have, I guess, to prioritize which is more important, to get food or to pay the bill. I think that's some situation that they're in right now. For each individual, the community, the Navajo people, directly case. Other is like, for example, on the 2, 4, 6, 7th question, I know the Navajo Nation, several chapters, CDBG, over 5 million base of Hulia. As of today, almost 2 years, I think that particular project is still going through the process. If that's the situation, will advance in the case, so it has been not to upgrade system. I don't does it. Go as go base or get a ticket that's a twin, and it has been not stop. Don't be not that's all as you go. Continue to the end, then they'll continue to be left to be asked to pay a certain amount of funding to get electricity. Or is that part of the listing that they have? Because CDBG was awarded over 5 million, and today I don't know, because one of the 5 that were allocated, one of them was for my chapter. Because these sheet in the base had actually right of way that Hekito and some other document between CDBG and DOJ and NTUA. I think the Bahun no sheet. I think the latest that I've asked for was last week. It's been not hata. Adna kon latte the base of that on Hajasha. This is the 3rd or 4th time that NTUA had proposed to start construction. So the latest one that I've known is that it's supposed to start in June. Because June's the latest one that I was told that it's going to start. The other was not that agwe unas not the dot ash. Na no the arch opish na hanne. Out of the light up Navajo and that kunanat. So what I've been told from NTUA is that those people are eligible for Light Up Navajo. We're going to start that Light Up Navajo until next year. But yet, some of them are continue to be considered to be on the Light Up Navajo, which is good, which I believe is a good program. But my point is that how come if we have funding, I mean, there should be all these Light Up Navajo lists should all be able to be pulled under this funding coming from APRA. Next year, the APRA funding, it's a project launch. They need the other that don't have deadlines. That's what's going to happen. All those that don't have deadlines and all those that are probably on the Light Up Navajo list, they're going to be continue to be pushed back, while NTUA will try to utilize the APRA funding, and that will be the excuse to say that, well, we have a deadline and we got to use up this funding for the don't need other veterans that are I know there's a legislation that was signed into law by the council, by the president. Elderly, 65 and older, and veterans don't need to pay for anything to get the electricity or water line. That should be caught now. Is there any coordination between the Veterans Office and NTUA of how many veterans potentially could be able to get electricity through this particular area? And that was one area that the home improvement, home construction legislation amendment earlier about several weeks ago, because there were the home ownership, they had to select a site that existing power line we took that out because we're subjecting our people or Navajo people to live in certain location or to existing construction. But again, we shouldn't be doing that. Veterans, how many are on the list, and if you could provide us documentation, let me request for that. How much is being potentially that could be able to get electricity as a veteran? A lot of our Navajo people are being given, and I attached to one of my in the email. I white out the person's name just for confidentiality, but there's an example. This individual is being asked to pay over $2,000 to get electricity, and the latest this document was dated in April of 2021. So NTUA continues to tell people that they have to pay this amount in order to get electricity. But yet we're going to be receiving billions of dollars, but at the same time we're telling people to pay so much to get power line. Again, going through the listing, the outstanding bill, disconnection, the Shinigi, what's your recommendation to pay a lot? Why is there if NTUA was to combine or compile all outstanding NTUA bills and disconnection bills, what would that amount to? If we were to say, okay, start clean from here, how much is the Navajo Nation? How much will NTUA disclose to say that, okay, this is how much outstanding bills that our Navajo people have, and this is how much for reconnection? Could we get just a simple dollar figure? I mean, could the Navajo Nation say that, okay, let's pay this off? I mean, we've got a lot of people off the reservation are getting paid for their rent, or even though it's not going to be their own. But already that's in the late kita tahot net you pay so hawan apartments o public and the area aja a kon hile hit on hit nan liniki di katoshit apata na hon kodo electricity shinto auto weekend is clear that the sheet on nishin dot ada it all huge based on liniki cho ownership and nadik electricity bill. Oh, you bet that's go katons at the horse. Ilahit abati nisla aja. I don't think if NTUA is asking for 271 million to upgrade their infrastructure, I would also say that they need to include those individuals that needs to upgrade their meter box or meter loop. I mean, look around your community, council members need Leniki, the North Indigo, Allah, and need East National, Shan that need you, that National, did it all, Hayuti, meter or barrel that out of National, Liki, other poles and the that, and I need that net, how the did our poles flat, what ego. Nas do atas tida no one no ako elahit ajit nen linigi pe bakha deal waslash do ako all the communities or the Navajo people are being told is that if that is the case, we might as well tell NTUA, well, that's your responsibility then. If you're going to be telling our Navajo people that it's their responsibility not to get any fundings from opera, then we should make a position to say that, okay, NTUA, if he's talking to our Navajo people like that, we should make a position that these infrastructures that you propose is your responsibility. Because I know the Navajo Nation Council had gave the NTUA a 1.5 billion line credit. Yard Dinigi dan Hanat, Nislodit, Ego, Kodo, Benas on Shobenia, Ecuador, based on Nisliki, a 1.5 billion, Bohi, Nago, Ecuador, Behachella, that see clean. A call Koje based on that note, the hag Arja or the not deal, Dego, Koje, Nikit the name or not this, on us not as destiny. A call she crash it, how frank I am and how it's going to fire back on me by NTUA. Let that be it. But this is how I stand for our Navajo people and also for the 5 chapters that I represent, because everything that I've disclosed or have been talked about is what I've heard directly from NTUA. Because they are being told that it's unfeasible. They're told that they're off grid. They're told that you live 2 miles away. And it's going to cost so much. I know the one project in one of my 5 chapters is going to cost $80,000 just to get the electricity. But yet, but yet, money is more important than the human being. Again, I appreciate NTUA doing their best. I'm not saying that they're just not doing anything, but I believe that the direct funding to our Navajo people should be the first year projects. And I believe that they should go to each 110 chapters, write them a letter, have NTUA write letter to each of the 110 chapters, and specifically come back to us maybe in 2 weeks of how much response that they will get from the chapter to say that these are the listings that we have, these are the potential applicants that we have, and this should be included in your power line project funding request. Because the other area is that CDBG, Division Community Development, had asked chapters to submit 3 projects. Now that's just eliminating a lot of projects that our Navajo chapters wanted to submit, but to be on the safe side, they're including power line. But my position to my chapters is that these power line projects should be combined with the the funding request by the NTUA. They should be included in of all the 110 chapters or power line projects should be included by the NTUA funding requests. I could probably go on and on. ako sa te ni sa to disni sa te o yada hil keto pa da zi ala ba yel tio do yego o hot ashin ti ni. Oh, we're going to do it this way. We'll get advisement. We'll get back to you. We'll consider your request or your recommendation. Well, and I'm sure my comment or my statement or my email will be similar. But I guess up to the funding allocation, I'll continue to say this and maybe go public to the community to say that this is what we need to do and this is how we should really get the funding directly back to our Navajo people. So, but the in the chapter I mean, to some extent, a lot of our Navajo people gets emotional. So how do you respond to that? So a lot of these community members has health condition. COVID-19 that no da but not at you the nan linigi so based on linigi what up and yet next they don't hit it no da. We're labeling people that they live off grid or they live 2 miles away. There's a lot of our Navajo people have health condition that needs some form of electrical equipment to get these going. Refrigerations, of medication and so on. Although especially our Navajo kids are thought to get online. But yet, basically, I mean, the cost of it is overwhelmed. Yes, it is. But I'm sure that if we work together, all of us, a lot of these could be eliminated, especially the right-of-way process, the art clearance process, and so on. The home site leasing, the Diego, is a barrier to our Navajo people. Yes, it's our responsibility as far as RDC, but what in the hit, all they could don't hit Nan, Liniki, or Quacky, Bessie, but the stop she had all Hiki and hit sympathy, Adol, Lesanke. Oh, huge the Papa Net Zad or the no Quacky Yale ticket. So I believe that Speaker, request directly from me. If you need me to write a memo, I need to request that we come back, have a response back from NTUA with another revised that our Navajo people will be getting these power line and all the questions that I have listed to be responded back to us. That's my formal request. Maybe in 2 weeks to reschedule not to say that to conclude, but that will be my request from today's work session. It's not economically feasible. No, the Kunela Panta Illa, no, the Joabin Yapeso, then she been hika or what? It never hit Nabe Bakati, or the near Adepin hika or what? Home based on dang it, the ice it Lapana, or place or the no or Sita, not Yale. If it's not, if maybe some other companies can also come in to say that, okay, maybe you're the one that could be able to help our Navajo people. If NTUA or other program on the Navajo Nation is continue to say that it's unfeasible, I mean, it's feasible, it's not unfeasible or it's off-grid, maybe other companies are willing to help the Navajo people to get these electricity. So, I'll stand firm on this particular statement, comment that I made, and I believe that maybe this would be a work against me of my position. But the thing is that that's just a personal issue, will be, but they need to consider of our Navajo people first. So, Speaker, Chairman.
Thank you, Honorable Keon Begay. And let me go back to Arash on that, on your position statement there, Honorable Keon Begay, and see if there's any response at this time, immediate response. I know you did indicate that you'd like a follow-up. But let me go ahead and go to Arash at this time.
Sure. Yes, Speaker Damon and Honorable Delegate Kayla Begay, thank you. And Delegate Begay, I'll continue to participate in the chapter meetings and the chapter work group sessions like I've done before, and try to help as I can. And I'll provide that service to all the other chapters, and NTUA does do that as well. As far as and just I don't know if my screen is still being shared. But if you look at, I know Mr. Honorable Delegate Kayla Begay mentioned, focusing on the direct connections to homes. So if you look at the listing for the project listing for that NTUA provided, if you take the NTUA electric power line projects and the off-grid solar units and electric power line projects, and you add those two numbers up, the total request or the total amount that we have listed here is about $114 million for direct electric connections to homes is what we're talking about here. So I know Honorable Delegate Begay mentioned, what is that number? The number is $114 million to connect 3,925 Navajo homes to the electric grid is what we believe that we can do in through the American Rescue Plan Act. Once again, this is with the with the invitation to other utility providers and co-ops, to collaborate with NTUA like we did with CARES, and use the funds to connect the families that in the areas that they have electric systems. As far as the feasibility and unfeasibility of projects, I just wanted to add some light on that, and maybe this could be an opportunity for discussion with NTUA and the nation as far as efficiencies. And I know that, we always talk about how can we make the process more efficient? How can we improve the process? And why are some things, why are some projects feasible and others not feasible? And, as an example, and why we mentioned the 1 mile distances for service lines, to get approved to connect a family with, for example, electricity. If it's within a mile, NTUA has to go through the archaeological compliance. We still have to go through the biological compliance. And then we receive the service line. If it's over a mile, we have to go through the tribal access authorization, the TAA. So we've got to go through the archaeological compliance. We've got to go through the biological compliance. In addition, there's additions now. If you go over a mile, you have to get a legal survey, and you also have to go through the consent process, chapter resolution, and then you have to go through the 164 review process. So when we talk about feasibility and certain funding sources, for example, with the CARES Act, one of the big determining factors for feasibility was timing. We only had a small period of time to construct projects. Now with the American Rescue Plan Act, we have more time. However, with the additional approvals that we have to go through with the Navajo Nation over a mile, it adds time to the approval process. And that's what we're looking at too. That's part of, I guess maybe a way that NTUA can work with the nation as far as efficiencies is looking at the process and seeing how can we improve that process and make sure that projects aren't, determined to be not feasible. They're all feasible, or, we can connect these within a certain period of time. But I'm just stating, that there's additional approvals we have to go through with the, if it's over a mile. We've got to get the legal survey mainly, and then we have to go through the 164 review process. So, there's timing issues, and I think that, we might have to have a further dialogue with, with the nation to see what we can do to, improve that. I think Delegate Charlene mentioned earlier too about the home site lease issue. I can let Rex speak a little bit later about the yield of the home site lease that we got through the CARES Act, and I'll let him speak because he worked on that closely with leadership. So that was, I know that Honorable Delegate Begay mentioned quite a few other things in there, but NTUA, and our staff is committed, just like we worked through the CARES Act, to connect as many homes to the electric grid as we can, but at the same time being safe and make sure that we practice safety for our workforce and our own Navajo people, to make sure that we can come home, our workers can come home as well, and enjoy time with their family and be safe. So we're trying to balance all of that as far as our own staff and making sure that we do our job correctly and diligently and efficiently, but also make sure we keep the health and safety and welfare of our own staff, at the top of the list as well. As far as there was other mentions about the CDBG funding and whatnot. I mean, there's a process right now that DOJ is using a new contract for the CDBG contract, so that's delaying the process. We had a traditional template that we use for CDBG contracts, and that's being updated. So that is part of the reason for the delays. So we're trying to go through that process with DOJ to comment on their updated template. But I just wanted to, I know that Delegate Gay, mentioned a lot of things during his time, but I just want to, once again, commit that NTUA is here to, provide the services that, electric services and connect as many homes as we can on the Navajo Nation through the funding sources that were allocated. We're appreciative of the nation providing these funding sources, and we're committed to going through the process and, connecting as many homes as we can. We also are available for, collaboration with chapters and with local communities. I try to get on as many calls as I can with local chapters and explain to them the process and our listing. And, it's time consuming, but I think it's important to get their opinion as well. And we're still committed to doing that. So I'll pass it over to Mr. Kuntz if he's on the line to see if he wants to add any comments. Oh, I also wanted to mention the disconnection. NTUA still has its current policy is not to disconnect any customers for non-payment of the utility bill. So we still have a moratorium in place that we will not disconnect homes for non-payment of utility bills. So if there's an issue there, you have to bring it to our attention, because we still have a policy that we are not disconnecting for non-payment of utility bills. And then also too, there was Honorable Delegate Begay mentioned the past due utility bills. NTUA has provided that information in the past, and we can provide that once again. We do have it as part of our global, the NTUA Master 36-month project summary, that a total amount for the past due utility bills for NTUA customers. And we'll also have other co-ops and utilities on the line that serve Navajo as well, so maybe they can provide input during their presentation. But we do have that information, and we will provide that information for the council to consider as far as assistance with our customers for unpaid utility bills. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With that, let me go ahead and go back, colleagues, back to the floor. Honorable Elmer Begay, the floor is yours at this time.
Good morning, Speaker. Can you hear me? Morning. Can you hear me?
Yes. We can hear you.
Okay. Speaker, members of the Naabik'íyáti committee. Thank you, Raj. Good morning, too. I have a question on the list that you gave us. I know I'm trying to look at the list that I got. Is mostly improvements on improving the NTUA regarding the capacity, electric capacity, and looking at mine, it states on here that mostly the first one will be the feeder recloser. That's mostly I thought it should be recloser is, when I was with NTA, was mostly for Manix. These are for Manix, and it should be that. And then also, I have a question on the $6 million one, the Bidahochi to Dalcon 115 kV transmission line. I don't know. I still can't understand that NTA is trying to run the 115 kV, 115 kV. There's no 115 kV at Bidahochi substation. The one that coming in from Chola power plant, at that time I was there was 6 to 9 kV was connected to Bidahochi, and the one from Burnside to Bidahochi was 6 to 9 kV too. The only 115 kV that I know that's coming from is from Sabanito to Burnside. So there's no 115 kV, and then here you're trying to run the 115 kV from Bidahochi to Dalcon, and right now you guys are building a 115/6 to 9 kV substation in Dalcon area for the improvement of the because of the Dalcon Medical Center. I don't understand that. When are you going to get your 115? It's not even there yet. And I don't know how you can run. I know that 2024, the 6 to 9 kV from Chola power plant to Bidahochi is going to be gone. And the only one that you could see is from Burnside to Bidahochi, but it's still 6 to 9. So I was looking at this. I maybe in the future sometimes, which I don't know if you can be running any 115 from Burnside to Bidahochi and then to Dalcon. So that's the only thing that you have it here for $6 million. I think I'm more looking at the people with this CARES fund, and then also with rescue funds, which mainly the grids to the home sites, and these homes are just only a single phase, and I think 6 to 9 is more efficient to run from Bidahochi to Dalcon. And right now, what we're worried about is I'm not sure if we're going to have enough power for the Dalcon Medical Center. If we're still waiting for the 115 kV right away, which will be another, I don't know, it's still in lawsuit right now to run that through the community in the Wells area. And that's what I mean by why are we waiting for 115? There's no 115 in Bidahochi, and we're trying to pressure these people that we have to reroute a power line for 115, and the hospital here is waiting for power. So I don't understand that part of it. If you can be running, if you can go ahead and run the 115 power line from Bidahochi to Dalcon, when are you going to get the 115 power line extension from Burnside to Bidahochi? That will be my question. And right now, the people are in lawsuit with the Dalcon Hospital Steering Committee. The hearings is on June. It's been going on, so I don't know why 115 was being proposed to run to do it right away through these communities. So there's a big question that I have. That maybe I have another follow-up question. So if you can answer that, Ross. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you. Let me go back to Rosh for that follow-up.
Sure. Yes, Honorable Delegate Begay, thank you for your comments. The question regarding the 115 or the 69 kV line, in order to serve that project in that specific area, regardless, we need that transmission line. So it's one of the things where whether it's a 115 kV or 69 kV, that we need to transmit that energy still. So, I know that there is some pending litigation regarding certain groups, but, the fact of the matter is that in order to serve that project in that community, we need the transmission there. So that's something that, it's unfortunately unavoidable as far as, us, NTUA as the electric, transmitter to get that transmission line built. So that's something that, unfortunately we're in this situation, but it's something that we have to do in order to, as part of serving certain areas and certain projects and certain communities, we've got to go through that process of getting the transmission line built. As far as the difference between the 115 kV versus the 69 kV, I'll have to check with our transmission group and make sure that we'll look at that. I don't have the technical background on that project, so I'll have to get with the technical group and we can provide you a response on that specific question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let me move on down. Honorable Eugene So. Floor is yours.
Che.
Yes.
Che. Okay, there you go. Oh, yes, Che. Oh. So I got a little bit of maybe a misunderstanding. First, I'm going to ask. Let me go back to the brief. Refers to the top one, the first slide, NTUA electric power line projects for COP, and then the other one is NTUA electric capacity projects. Now, the next one that says NTUA off-grid solar units, and then it says and electric power line projects. So we were discussing just a while ago what is meant by that when also saying that a mile or 2 miles is not required because of the criteria. That's just the first one I was just looking at. Now, the main thing that I always stress since I became council delegate a few years ago. Anyway, almost the same line as Mr. Honorable Key Allen Begay. My question is, this ARP Act, American Recovery Plan Act, is it conflict with NTUA criteria regards to number one, the grid? So that's what I mean most of the time when I say we get federal funds. But it doesn't really, because of the language in there, we don't get things materialized on the ground where it's most needed by our people. Craig, it's what's hot. This bills says also the bills for the people, is that a recovery? The Naabik'íyáti just to help them with the bills, because a lot of things have happened and some of them don't work no more, etc. And the act is, just by reading it, it says American Recovery. Does it pertain to paying the bills for them? And then the upgrade wiring, does that same thing, the same situation too? So I don't know how I understand the Recovery Plan Act, but it seems that it's not being used as recovering it. We're just trying to build more of other projects. Okay, now, along the grid, the language, the Navajo Nation, it doesn't coincide with the Navajo Nation way of life, as we all aware that the people here on the Navajo Nation already are living within the clan system, clan top. Keya is already withdrawn for those clans. There's no such thing as home site lease or land use or grazing permits. That's how I understand the treaty. Now, these people, they live somewhere in the remote area. Part of the Toritini in Chinle area lives in the remote area. Part of it lives along 191. Part of them all the way up into the Three Turkey Ruins. So there's a long stretch of the Toritini clan. That's their boundary. Some don't live by the grid, but the boundary for that family is a long way across, and we're denying them of electricity, the one that don't live by the grid. As long as we can hook them up. So okay, I guess that's so it don't coincide with it, with the NTUA's criteria. So it only talks about the NTUA is only giving money or helping people that live along the road. And then some council delegates try to encourage people to live alongside the road. And that's not how people are raised. They live in their own clan area. That's how I see it. Now, if we're going to go back and redo this according to our people living on the Navajo Nation, I'm really for it. We're just identifying the people along the grid area, along the roads, along the development areas. That's not really what the Act is requesting for. I think if I'm wrong, I believe Dana can correct me. So it's for the people. Just like the CARES Act, it was for everybody. Not only people that are living along the grid or the one that wants electricity. So those are my argument in regards to this Act and the criteria of the NTUA, and that don't really coincide with our way of life on the Navajo Nation. It's a conflict. So we need to sit back down and redo our criteria, NTUA, and adjust where everybody's going to be getting something out of the NTUA in regards to what happened during the Light Up Navajo. I guess some other companies or some other individuals paid for all this materials to have people light up because they care with their cares, how they felt. It shouldn't be, people shouldn't be living in the third world. I think we might have to start thinking about those kind of stuff. And also to sit down and read through your criteria. I don't know where it's coming from, but it doesn't coincide with the Navajo way of life. So whoever the board is, it needs to sit down with it. So if you're going to put something on the ground from federal government, that's for the people. And if we had to find a language or words that can really define how we can help everybody on the Navajo Nation, no matter what. That's how I see it. Excuse my language or excuse my if I said something wrong or I'm not really educated or whatever. Excuse me. That's what I do ask Dana in regards to these. It needs a real good definition of what the Act says and what the criteria says for what we're listening to right now. Hey, David, I said thank you. Okay.
Thank you very much, Honorable Eugene. So let me go on down to Madam Chair Amber Crotty. Floor is yours, Madam Chair. Then I'll come back to you, Rosh.
Chairman Damon, this is Delegate Crotty. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. I apologize. I pressed star 9, which I didn't know was an option. Thank you, staff, and my colleagues on the line, Arash, for providing this report in terms of one of our enterprises that, as Navajo Nation Council, and hearing from my delegates, that the enterprises are our children and that we should continue to support them and help with any policy challenges or amendments that you may be facing. So I would want to make sure in this conversation, as the attorney for NTUA, that you provide or have any recommendations when it comes to Navajo Nation policy that is either a conflict or is a challenge when we want to provide service to our people. I understand and I hear a lot regarding home site lease. And in our research, the Navajo Nation, the council itself, has the authority to modify the home site lease, and that happened in 2016. We also, as a council, can have a conversation about how are we going to provide relief to our people with the home site lease process during this pandemic. And that's not for NTUA to do, but that's as the council. And my hope is that we seriously consider what are policies or modifications that's under our authority as a council to provide relief. The second area that I wanted to focus in on is, so this is my 7th year as a delegate, and it is very rare for the Navajo Nation Council to allocate funding to NTUA to provide services to our people. I think there's a lot of misinformation in terms of how NTUA, what type of funding you receive. And that credit line item, that's a loan. And so that is going to need NTUA to pay back that loan. And I think that impacts the cost then we see on the ground, and then how NTUA is going to sustain itself to be able to recapture those dollars. So those are all business decisions where I think if the Navajo Nation Council could be, or if I could be provided some additional information then on how can we then provide assistance to make sure that our people then are not left with either higher rates, and that has been an ongoing conversation, or the sticker shock of how much it'll cost to get utilities to their line. So there's several funding, several funds that we have here on Navajo Nation. In particular, very at the chapter level, the chapters received, their capital improvement dollars. And as I was a legislative district assistant for Delegate Begay, I noticed that some chapters provide a lot of support to their communities. And so it's chapter by chapter, and it was very interesting how much they invested in their community. And I know at BNF we received how much chapters currently have in their coffers. And so I think as a council, we should be asking our chapters, how much of this funding have they used to provide utilities to their community members? Are they applying for the CDBG grant? That's the Community Development Block Grant. That's every year, and I know that chapters in my district have applied and been successful. And the reason why I say this is because it's a team effort when we're talking about utilities and getting access or to get our people online. And so looking at some of the challenges here, I want to offer some of those solutions to my colleagues on what can we do as a council to provide relief. How much are we willing to fund to make sure our people in this release time to get access to electricity? And I believe it's right there with water, power, and broadband to make sure that they have their basic human rights, basic human dignity to live here on the Navajo Nation. And then, Speaker and my colleagues, what I want to talk about too is in terms of the reimbursement when it comes to ARPA. I apologize, I don't have your presentation handy, but was there conversation about if NTUA is documenting how much has been spent since March 3rd? My concern is your workers, NTUA Navajo workers, were out in the field during CARES, and they never received any hazard pay or special duty pay. And so looking at the ARPA guidelines, and now we have the ability for this premium pay, what are some of the suggestions? My heart goes out to your employees who were hurt. I didn't realize the extent of their injury until their mothers called me and let me know that her son was suffering 4th-degree burns and was in Salt Lake City Hospital. So colleagues, I think as we have this conversation to think about, you know, the employees who provide this service, and then what are the roles that we can do to help them. I'm not sure, Arash, if you could provide, you know, what type of support is there for the workers who were impacted. You know, my brother-in-law, he was up in the air when it happened, and so, but it was his crewmen down on the ground who were hurt, and we just want to make sure that they're taken care of. And I just happened to have met the mother previously because she had a burnout about 3 months ago, and so these are our Navajo families who are dealing with all of the things that we're dealing with, but they're on the ground trying to provide connection to our community. So I want to make sure that as we talk about this project, that we're also not pushing our employees to the breaking point. And if there's a way, or if NTUA feels like, yes, these are areas where we'll need to contract out, or these are specialized areas, I would think that would be the best approach, and especially if we could bring on some of the smaller contractors to Navajo contractors to build up their team, or how we can work with our universities, like NTU has a construction team, and so I think that's where I'm at when it comes to this presentation here today, Speaker Damon. What we would like to do and have a solid idea, just like Light Up Navajo, where it was to the point where we had to have volunteers come on to Navajo to build up our electric lines to our people. And I could recall, being a staffer in the council chambers and hearing a report from APS and the delegates asking APS, well, you have this huge power plant. How come our community members that live by do not have power? And it was hard to hear from APS, who was very upset, but he said, that's the decision of this council. That goes on Navajo leadership. And so what I want to do is continue to understand what are the challenges, how can we assist or support delegates who want to amend and make it easier for our people to access their utilities. And when we talk about these disconnections or folks who have chronic outstanding bills, and I, in my experience, it's been in the thousands. They still think first that council delegates have discretionary funds, and so it's a challenge to help them understand that that's no longer available, and we refer them to social services. But also looking then, what are their challenges in paying their bills? And in my experience with the handful that have contacted me, it's really has gone back to a gaming addiction. And so then as a nation, if we continue to support gaming and understanding there's an addictive quality to that, then what is going to be our response to help those individuals who have that, but their families are suffering because they're not able to pay their bills? And I think in this time with ARPA funding, is there an opportunity to assist, like just to reset everyone and to give them an opportunity to get back on and understanding that our people are having those challenges. So thank you, Speaker. I know this is beyond a little bit more of the presentation in terms of the projects that are being proposed, but I think if we could look into those policy areas, especially the home site lease process. I know our local NTUA office has been very helpful in assisting our constituents to get through the home site lease process. And so I'm thankful for your team at your Shiprock office because we know that this is critical, but our people have so many challenges on how to get this home site lease process. So what can we do as a council to remedy that, or at least provide additional support during this time so that they could have access to their utilities? Thank you, Speaker, and I look forward to the response from Arash and your team there at NTUA. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much for that, those comments, Madam Chair. With that, let me go back to Arash at this time, and then we can continue on. Arash, let me turn the floor back over to you.
Sure. And I'm going to have, if it's okay with you, Speaker Damon, Mr. Kuntz respond to a few of the questions.
Yes, go ahead, both of you guys. Floor is open.
Thank you. Just takes a few buttons to get unmuted here, but let me try to touch on some of the items that were highlighted. I'll try to summarize real quick. There again, I mentioned before, there's a history of how projects were processed. There's a lot of different funding that does come forward, and they each have their own criteria. So sometimes the restrictions may not be NTUA's restrictions. They might be the requirement of the funding source. So with CARES and ARPA, we were able to do a lot more things because there wasn't any specific guidelines or restrictions, only some general qualifications. Our understanding from all the legal interpretations, which included DOJ, the utility bills were not qualified during CARES, although we had quantified that and we had support, I think, at times from council and also from the president's office to try to request that, but those things didn't happen. Regardless of that, going into the ARPA, everybody that was lobbying that were successful in getting some adaptation and changes. So as a result of that, there are some new rules, and our understanding is there is an avenue now to get reimbursement for past due billing. So we have quantified that, as Arish has said, and that number is available to be pursued. As far as the other restrictions, several delegates here have asked about the house wiring requirements, and as I noted earlier, traditionally that's been the homeowner's responsibility, and the chapters have funded those things and help bring in resources to get house wiring done. For a home, the meter box and the riser that comes up where you connect to it, that's all considered in the industry part of house wiring. For a mobile home, the meter box is not mounted on the trailer. There's a service pole that gets put in the ground, and the meter box connects underground to a mobile home. The riser comes up on the service pole, and that's where the utility company will connect. So during the CARES Act, we went beyond that area. We went in and we did house wiring. We repaired some house wiring. We installed meter boxes and service poles because there wasn't really any restriction. And so, our intent here is that we try to create that feasibility by taking that work and it is part of what is being requested and funded. So I know people have been quoted a lot of things from past restrictions, and it is a little hard. I will admit, our own staff at times, this is what they're in the routine of communicating. So if we've had some miscommunication at the local level, we will work hard to make sure that they understand what we're doing with ARPA funds. So I'm hoping that we can get through those miscommunications. We are intending to do whatever's necessary to get the home prepped, and there's money in there to do that. Part of the restriction on the distance, as Aris said, has to do with the ability to get a service line agreement, which is a shorter right-of-way process versus the much longer and more detailed requirements for a standard right-of-way. So it's just a matter of timing and trying to move the projects as quickly as possible. The other restriction is basically, financial. They cost more. We mentioned going up to 2 miles and beyond that, suggesting that be a solar home. Our typical service line short, we quote about $40,000 to get that project done. For a 2 mile line, it jumps quite a bit in cost, also because of the more lengthy process, and it's roughly about $9,000 or $90,000. So, you can serve those homes. I think those are decisions that this council can decide, but it's a matter of, how you manage the money and how far you want to stretch it to get, the maximum number of homes served, or try to reach out and serve everybody that comes across your desk, but you may end up serving fewer if you're spending more money to do that. So I think those are things that the leadership needs to take into consideration. And we did provide our proposals divided, basically quoted by those that are service projects versus those that are capacity improvement projects. So this council can see the difference between the two, and they can elect to reduce one and try to increase the other. I think that's basically what we were providing, was that separated so you could see the two different endeavors. We did in the first proposal, we only had about 18 to 20% of the project was service projects. We kept those intact and we reduced it down, so now service projects make up about 42% of our proposal. Now, during the water discussion yesterday, there was a lot of great questions about long-term planning, long-range vision, making sure that we had a kind of a global plan. How do we deal long-term with drought situations? And I related some of the large-scale planning with regard to water rights, moving bulk water, and ensuring that we're creating the capacity, and for projects that were deemed not feasible, by building those capacity projects and extending more bulk water lines into areas, it brings water to areas that didn't have water. So now some of those projects may now be reclassified as feasible because you have the water supply and the larger mains that have moved water into those areas. And there's still more work to be done to spread it further, but by taking advantage of the dollars today, you're setting up those core systems that can be built off of and move towards making more projects feasible. The same philosophy is with the electric construction or the electric capacity projects, is we're trying to increase the amount of power that come into a community and to move more power in larger quantities to areas so that they have the ability to grow. So a lot of today's discussion, which rightfully so, is focused on service to the individual home. There was a lot of concerns yesterday with regard to water and wastewater whether or not we could accommodate growth and development and economic development. With regard to the purpose of the American Recovery Act, there is specific call out within the act about supporting economic development and growth as part of a recovery process of increasing the income and services to communities. So with not knowing exactly where that growth is going to be concentrated or where those dollars will be invested, we are trying to create more capacity within our core system so that we can adapt to those changes as they occur. So let's use Delcon as an example of that. You know, you could get by with 69 to serve the hospital, but then it limits itself to minimal growth beyond that. If you work on bringing 115, it gives you the ability to grow other things. And with the new hospital, the healthcare system has deemed that there's enough growth in that area that it justifies a full-size hospital. And if that growth is there and the evidence is there for growth and a continuing growth, there needs to be more jobs, more services, more economic development. So bringing the large water line from Loop brings that water capacity there beyond the needs of just the hospital. It brings more water into the community, allows that community to grow and develop, and to bring in more power there also gives growth and development. So there's some foresight in trying to increase capacity so that not only more homes can be served there, but along the routes that those lines are running, and to allow for more development planning for future funding opportunities. And let us not forget that there is another infrastructure bill that's being developed that may bring more dollars for more infrastructure. So anything that we set aside will probably be put towards the infrastructure bill. And, you know, that we just need to take an opportunity and try to balance out, making sure that we have a system that can deliver what we're hooking up to it, both residential and larger development. So I just kind of wanted to make that that clear with regard to that. With regard to the rights-of-ways and the home sites, what Land Department had allowed during the CARES Act was the acceptance of just the home site application, saying that the homeowner was pursuing it. When you apply for a home site, you pay I think it's a $30 application fee, and if they brought that receipt to us, we were allowed to use that receipt as evidence of a home site lease, and then Land Department would process the rights-of-way papers. The difficulty at this point is that Land Department is nervous that people will not finish that process and go through and get the final home site. And so that would put those homes and the process and existing utilities in violation of current Navajo Nation law, as that's a requirement that the person being served has to have a home site in their name. So Honorable Crotty mentioned, you know, what can a nation do, because they control, you know, you control the law, the process, and the rules. Those things could be amended so that that no longer is a requirement, or there could be a hard written exception. But you know, right now everybody's saying, well, Land Department has to go bug the homeowner to get their home site lease. Then Land Department is saying NTUA needs to go bug them to get the home site lease. And we could say, we're chapters, you guys need to go get your homeowners to go finish their home site lease process. But, you know, somebody's got to remind the homeowners that they need to go get that home site lease finalized. There was an exception made with an understanding that the process was started and it will be completed. Now there's worry that people will not complete the process because they got services and there's less of an incentive and driving force to do that. Now, I do, you know, want to make it real clear that that restriction and requirement is a Navajo Nation requirement. The federal law requires tribal consent and landowner consent. So way back in time, before that was a Navajo Nation requirement, if a grazing person signed off on a right-of-way even if a person didn't have a home site, because the grazing permittee was considered the landowner, you could get their consent and you could still serve the home. If mom and dad had a home site lease and they let son or daughter live on that home site lease with them, as long as the landowner, which was the home site lease named individual, signed off on it and gave consent, we could serve the son and daughter. Today's law says they have to have a home site lease in their own name, so that doesn't allow them to be able to do that anymore. So those are restrictions that we put upon ourselves. This legislative body could remove those restrictions, revert back to what was done before. We have, in the last administration, there was an effort to redefine when grazing authorizations were required. The logic was that if you put an underground pipeline or an overhead line, that the grazing activity was only momentarily disrupted, and as a result, there was no takeaway from the surface grazing. So no damage to the grazing permittee holder once the project was done. So the legislation had detailed out that it was called a public benefit no consent law that would allow underground utilities and overhead to be constructed and not require grazing consent because there wasn't a takeaway or damage to the grazer. So that law was moving forward. Unfortunately, other things got into the dialogue, and that whole justification was sidetracked. But if this body would entertain something of that nature, that's change in law and process that I believe Honorable Crotty was asking about, that would eliminate the need to go get the grazing permittee signature, and we could probably get more of these projects extended and the right-of-way process done quicker. So those things can be reintroduced. I do have copies of the drafted legislation that could be started back through the process that would open up things. We have other ideas about how to change or rewrite process that would eliminate some of the restrictions, and I believe Arish and I owe Speaker a list of recommendations that we agreed to. So we're finalizing that, working on it. We can provide that to the Speaker for the nation's consideration. So those are efforts that we're doing to try to figure out how to open the process. As far as changing our philosophy on feasibility, it really has to do with everybody that has the money under the control. How much do they want to invest per home? And it's just a logical reasoning of, do we want to serve maximum amount of homes, or do we want to just focus on trying to get everybody served? I think the reality is we don't have enough money, even in this ARPA Act, to serve everybody. So at some point, you're going to have to make some decisions on how do you use the money most effectively. And so we're trying to bring something that we think is an effective use of the money, along with meeting the current needs that are feasible, so we max the number of homes served, and also to make sure that we put stuff in the ground and in capacity so that we can accommodate future growth and development, so that the nation can grow and develop. So we're trying to meet the needs of the nation as much as reasonably possible. We hear what everybody's saying about what needs to focus on first. I don't think philosophically we have any differences. We do agree with that. It's just some decisions have to be made to give us guidance on where to focus our efforts in those dollars. We do value services to the people. That's why we did not make any cuts or reductions in the service projects. If this council wants to increase more services and put more money that way, we can make that adaptation. We just need some guidance from you on what you would like for us to bring back. That's all I have to offer at this. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that follow-up. Ms. Coots. Ross, did you have anything else to add on?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. That, colleagues, we are still on the first report. We do have numerous other reports. Just keep that in mind. Time now is 12:36. I do have Honorable Yellow Hair in the queue. Honorable Yellow Hair, floor is yours.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm glad this is going on with the utilities. Thank you from NTUA for your report. Also, my colleagues, the 24 councilmen, that you're talking about very important utilities. I would like to bring this information before my committee, though it's not science, though. There is a process for utilities hookup, which is start with a chapter identified by name of households needed electricity. Then a map of a resident who locations and authorize the right-of-ways for the job to be done. And after that, land administrations and the chapter officials to verifications of home site location chapter. Much of the work needs to come from our chapter from Black Mesa. I guess we have to all work together with NTUA staff. So we all need that communication. We have to do our best to respect one another, not to step on each other's toes, which we always do when reports are provided by Navajo Nation program. Let's get to what involves us as a council and our chapter working with NTUA staff. Follow the process we need to follow. And the add-on for that was follow the existing process until a Navajo communications or mix up a change to existing way that we're doing things, that attend amending policy and to expedite the service to Navajo family. We really need to work together as a whole, as a council. Black Mesa talked about my community in Black Mesa. We need electricity power, which NTUA has all the information they had. I think I met with them twice over there in NTUA. So I just want to say thanks to NTUA. Do your best you can to provide a good service of utilities and the best you can. Say Jimmy Elher, anything, any problems from my side? I say just not on the so yeah, just NTUA. Yeah, the Harnegi ko an his and the Ihutari about partition. So Eras Malami, thank you for your report. And you know my site from Black Mesa. There's a need up there in the Roger Pai in the areas that we need to put up electricity power up there. By Henson. Any questions? Eras, and talk to me and respond back to me. Thank you, Speaker. Damon, Navajo Nation Council Hassan Tai, Henson on so or seat that in Navajo Nation Pedeti Obaha Stidoli, especially in Black Mesa area. We need a lot to do over there. Electrical line connection for house to house. Thank you, once for Mr. Damon. Speaker,
Oh, thank you very much, Honorable Yellow Hair, for those comments. Let me go ahead and go back to the floor. Any other questions or comments to the presenters at this time? Twice.
Speaker should say.
Eugene, so go ahead, the floor is yours.
This is Delegate James, put me on the line.
Okay. As explained a while ago, regards to the home site by, I can't believe who was saying that. I wish I could meet up with that person. Regards to only a permittee or just to consent people to live in their area. عشان liaison job, so that's other. I would like that name, and I would like that that legislation that he was talking about. I want to look at it. I have a meeting with on the homicide issue tomorrow at 10:30. So you need to, it might have to excuse me, the chair with Mr. Naabik'íyáti, that TOG, former. Thank you, Eon, for this. Thank you, though. So that's what I wanted to know.
Thank you. Let me go on down to Honorable James. I'll come back to you, Arash or Mr. Koontz. Honorable James, floor is yours.
Yeah, Don, another speaker, and then members of the council, and then audience. Yeah, just the whole just another who net though. It's another who now just although quite because only NTUA John Sheda Kodo the connection based on only clinic NTUA Biasuja do Argent Hot and that war conduct and the net and Leniki basic sheep is handled a whole house Argo Jokut A. Mrs. Hodgson law quite by year and legal. First I'd like to thank you for the information that you have provided, and then also your 3-year project listing that you have provided, and what the expectation out of NTUA is within the first year, the second year, the third year of the different project descriptions that you guys have laid out. And so in my remarks to this information, regarding the listing, the 1-year listing, you have a lot of the areas indicating electric distribution improvements. So my question in regards to that is this for current homes that are being provided with electricity, or is this distribution improvement to accommodate new homes that need electricity within our area? So when I look at the listing, like for my area, for Ganado, it does state indicating burn sites switch upgrade, and then there's another area that talks about Cross Canyon R38 6 Spear. But when I look at the estimated costs, it is a low amount in regards to this project. But so I'm assuming that this is not a job that will be in place to assist new homes that are in need of power line, or homes that are currently getting service from NTUA, power line service from NTUA. So that's my first question in regards to your listing. And then I jump over to the next area, which is your 3-year project listing, now for Nation Power Line projects, and in regards to that listing, come on, there's, I don't know why my laptop is slow. There's that listing at the top where you have it separated by council delegates and chapters, and then NTUA. You have NTUA, and then you have numbers underneath that. Can you tell me what those numbers are? And then the total project moving further down into the listing. you have the total projects. And when I look at those total projects, is that for new homes? Is that new homes that are going to be worked on? Because the total project is actually a low number to me if it's going to be new homes that are going to be serviced. But then when I go back and look at your overall amounts, it's not corresponding with me. Maybe I need to sit down with you guys. When I look back at page 1, your breakdown of your pay, it's not corresponding, or it's not reflecting the listing that you have there. But you do have a big amount that you originally requested for, and also breaks down the amount of how much funds you need for each phase of project that is listed. So that's my question. And then my next one is in regards to CARES Fund. I know I had brought this up before, but I didn't have NTUA's leadership or administration staff on the line, and the individual that was presenting to us was unable to answer the question. But since I have leadership administration staff on the line from NTUA, it would be a question regarding CARES, where we had several families that were informed of their approval of obtaining the solar unit. And those families that were told that they would qualify for the solar units, this is CARES funds. They qualified for the solar units, and they were going to be forward the solar units. But then within that same time period, they were also informed, oh, you're within a mile. And you're within a mile, therefore, we're just going to get regular power line to you since you're within a mile of the actual power line. And they were given that information, and eventually both of those services were not done for individuals or families. So they lost out on 2 different opportunities. One was they lost out on the solar units because they were informed that they were within 1 mile radius that they would be getting the power line. But then on top of that, when the time was a crunch and time was coming to play, for some reason there was not a service with the power line again. So the families, the individuals coming back and saying, you know what, I should have just went and moved forward with getting the solar units, because right now I would have had some sort of electric service at home, but right now I lost out on both services and I still don't have electricity. So those were some of the concerns that I have received. One of the concerns that I received regarding CARES funds and the CARES project that was lined out by you as NTUA. So I don't know how those individuals are going to be taken care of, or if they're going to be a priority to be served because they were told that and eventually they lost out on both projects. So that would be my other question. My last comment is that I do appreciate Mr. Red Cahoots for providing that information to us. I don't sit on Resource and Development Committee, so I'm unable to find out what kind of depth information that you provide to RDC. No, the chair has not provided any information to Naabik'íyáti regarding NTUA up to this day. So nor has any of the RDC committee members really has shared the depth information that you guys would share with them, because that's your oversight. But as for me, I've always wanted to know what were the hiccups, what were the red tapes, what was the problem on providing a lot of these electric services, power line services to our Navajo constituents. And I appreciate the information that was just provided by Mr. Rex Cahoot in regards to what their recommendations are and how they sat down and discussed as a team, as administrative staff and with the field staff on what is needed out there, what kind of expectation they need, or what kind of assistance they need, what kind of accommodations they need from the nation to provide the service. And you went down a listing of things that how it used to be in the past and how service was provided right away to families and individuals to provide those power lines and the electric service to the families. And I would not mind getting that information if you can forward that information to myself, possibly even to the whole council, to know that we have this information that is recommended from NTUA of what they see and what is the hiccups and what are the red tapes for them to provide that service and to accommodate our Navajo people to get power line service. And if nobody wants to sponsor it, after I review the documents, I really don't mind sponsoring the document, sponsoring the legislation to move forward to get a lot of these power line services to our Navajo constituents throughout the Navajo Nation, because we do have quite a bit of families that live in clusters or that live next to each other, and they have extension cords going from one home to another home to another home, and that's not the way we should be set up as a nation. But you know, I guess it's because of the new laws or the new changes that have been made that require these families to do such thing as doing that by running running extension cords in between homes. So I really don't mind assisting NTUA in regards to making those accommodations that they worked on and their suggestions and their recommendation to serve the Navajo people throughout the Navajo Nation. So if you can forward me those documents, that would be very helpful. Again, thank you. Thank you again for the time, Speaker. Going back on mute.
Thank you very much, Honorable James. Now let me go back to Arash or Mr. Kuntz. Floor is yours, gentlemen.
Sure, I can answer the questions or kind of go over the information. And I apologize if the information isn't clear on the spreadsheet, the 18-page spreadsheet. And you know, for the NTUA electric power line connections, as Mr. Kuntz mentioned, the NTUA electric power line projects and the NTUA off-grid solar units and electric power line projects, those two add up to about $114 million, and those are direct connections to Navajo homes, direct access to electricity to Navajo homes. I mentioned earlier in the presentation, I just want to reiterate that there's still, you know, locations not yet identified. So that this listing that we have on the subsequent pages is not the complete listing of all the projects. So, you know, this is just the information that we've compiled now, and it's a live document. And we didn't want to take away from, once again, from the direct connections and services to Navajo homes. The electric capacity projects, as we talked about earlier, is, you know, improving our infrastructure. And I know there's been debate, and it's, you know, it's up to the council. It's, you know, it's the council's wishes how they want to allocate the money. But this is just the plan that we have front, you know, for the nation to consider. You know, so if you look at our plan, we have 3,925 connections to homes, connections to the electric grid that we're proposing. and then 900 off-grid solar units that will be installed and commissioned. So if you combine those two, it's approximately 4,825 connections or families that used to not have electricity that will have electricity as part of the American Rescue Plan Act. So that's the idea. And as Mr. Kuntz mentioned too, there's some of the restrictions, or I don't know if you want to call it restrictions or criteria. We could talk further about it, but some of it's based on the restrictions that NTUA faces. And if we can overcome those, then we can, change that whole either distribution of funds or distance or both. So it's something that we're willing to consider, and we're open about this. But this is just our current plan. It's a live document. It's subject to change, and we're looking for thoughts and recommendations. But this is, from the utility perspective, this is what NTUA, in its professional opinion, can provide within this within the American Rescue Plan Act period of time. Mr. Kuntz, did you want to comment on the other portion? Oh, I apologize. The one thing that I did wanted to comment on is the CARES Act. I know Delegate James mentioned the individual with the CARES Act. I don't know the specific instance, but what we've done is, one of the challenges with the CARES Act that we faced is the timing. The CARES Act, the Navajo Nation legislation for NTUA's award under the CARES Act, CJY-67-20, it expired, or the project had to be completed by December 30th of 2020. So we didn't get the federal extension. So one of the challenges we faced was a timeline. And then the other portion was we had to revert any funds that we didn't spend by that deadline. So what we've done is, for individuals that didn't, I guess we couldn't connect through the CARES Act, we've included them as part of the American Rescue Plan. So that's something that we have done. And if there's any issues, you can contact NTUA or myself or Shannon Burnett, and we can look into that. But that was the idea. We wanted to connect everyone that we could through the CARES Act, but unfortunately, timing and funding were two big factors that limited NTUA connecting as many homes as we could with electricity. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that information, Rosh. That, colleagues, any other further comments, questions at this time? We don't have anybody else in the queue here, colleagues. We do have APS coming up next, and other co-ops too as well, and also the city of Farmington that still have not presented yet. Going twice. Going three times. Thank you very much, Arash and Mr. Kuntz, for explanation, and thank you very much. It seems like there'll be some follow-up. I know, Arash, you heard from my colleagues here on the Naabik'íyáti committee. I guess some of those suggestions, as you indicated, this is a live document. It's something that's continuously being updated, and with more and more individuals trying to apply or get that information to get on the listings, I think that's the most important thing I think that we can advocate to as well, in order for us to push that envelope and push that barrier and push that on ourselves over here at the chapter levels. So in that continuation, thank you very much for your report this morning and then into this afternoon. And I think that the dialogue will continue. And if you're more than able to stay on, I know that some of the other areas of interest are going to be included too, as well as this network of opportunity doesn't stop with just these next presenters, but also includes yourselves as well, and opportunities to make sure that the funding gets to the appropriate places. So again, thank you very much. With that, colleagues, let's go ahead and continue on down to item number B on the listing, which is Arizona Public Service. APS, the floor is yours. I don't know, did they have a presentation? But go ahead and at this time, Arizona Public Service, the floor will be turned over to you. Good afternoon Time now is 1:01 p.m. Anybody on from Arizona Public Service? Going twice. Going 3 times. We'll reach out to APS again. Let's continue on down. We do have Hamas Mountain Electric Co-op Inc. I know that Hamas Electric sent over a document, and we sent that out 10:19 a.m. this morning. So I don't know who's on the line, but good afternoon. From Hamas Electric. Carmen?
Hello, this is Carmen Campbell.
Yes, Ms. Campbell. Good afternoon. Good to hear your voice again. Ms. Campbell, floor is yours at this time.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker and members of the Council. I did have to send out a revised project list, because there was a couple on there that didn't belong, but the rest of them are ones that we're actively pursuing and making some progress on. I want to thank you for the opportunity to bring this to you guys again, and we look forward to connecting as many people as possible. And we also put some system improvement projects on our list that would directly impact people on the Navajo Nation, and increase reliability and bring possible economic opportunities to the area that we, under our current structure as a nonprofit organization, wouldn't necessarily do, because we usually do that as a need, an immediate need. So we received, like the other ones, a lot of people who are disappointed because they weren't able to take part in the first CARES Act project that we did with NTUA. But what we've done is continue to gather those and get as many construction ready as possible. And so we, currently have about 60 applications, with about a little over half of those are construction ready. What we've come across too is some really short, like the shorter ones that, because they cross land status or the distance, it's just single families that would require a full right-of-way. We have 16 of those, and they're not, the other ones on that list are all larger projects that are going to help us connect groups of people, and so those make sense to go ahead and do, even though they are the larger projects. With what we have on that list right now, this is especially the smaller, the short SLA single-family line extensions and the right-of-way single-family line extensions. Those are going to continue to grow as we work on it. But 182 families are still out there that we know of that don't have power right now, and so we hope we can take advantage of the funding that's available and get them connected. We talked yesterday with Sherilyn, and we were talking about some of the recommendations and suggestions that we might have in helping us to actually get these projects completed in a timely, efficient way. And one of those things, we run across is families don't have the required paperwork in order, or they're waiting on home site leases to be approved. And sometimes it's just a matter of, they might want like another meter on their property to, they might have a hogan next to their mobile home or something that they'd like to power. and just under the current understanding of the CFR and BIA's, what we're getting from BIA is that stuff like that can't be done. And so I had some recommendations on that, and that the first one was just to get some clear and concise written directives with regard to the interpretations of the CFR that BIA has. We've talked with them a lot, and we get different things, and sometimes that changes or we don't understand them, the way they're, what they're trying to communicate with us for whatever reason, and so just something in writing would be nice. We'd also allowing second and third meters to be connected for the same leasee, especially if it's for that leasee. And then also what we were hoping, and we have quite a few homes that aren't construction ready right now because they're in the process of obtaining their residential home site lease, the ones on allotted land, and those are taking a long time to get approved, and so at this point we wouldn't be able to connect them even if we had the money, because they don't have the approved home site lease yet. So if there's any allowances that can be made for that, especially and I know BIA talked about the pandemic period and having certain allowances there, but I think something to consider is this is going to take years to recover from, so there's a pandemic recovery period that should be considered for these two, and not just, when people start getting well. The other thing is to, we have family members that have passed and their relatives are still living at that home, and allowing them, as long as they've applied for that probate or whatever, allowing them to apply for, have a service line agreement. And then also we have a problem with having to go back to a main trunk line instead of going off a smaller line that was acquired by a service line or built with a service line agreement. And so sometimes you'll have 4 or 5 homes in the same area, and instead of going from home to home, we're going back to the main line. So you have all these power lines that it doesn't look right. It doesn't, it's a little excessive, and it costs more. But we're doing that because of the restrictions with the service line agreement. The final thing I wanted to say is when we worked with NTUA with the homes that we were able to connect, they did take care of that house wiring, and that was a huge hurdle. We wouldn't even have been able to do half of the ones that we did if they hadn't provided that contractor to go in and do that. And in fact, we do have a home that they weren't able to do that on. We had already got a letter of compliance because the chapter was able to provide a meter pedestal or a meter pole, but what they weren't able to do is provide house wiring for an old trailer that was it's unsafe to connect to that meter pole. And so this lady's still without power, and we still need to work on how we can fix that. It's not something the co-op can take up as an expense because of our structure as the nonprofit, like I said. But she's in the back of my mind all the time because for her, the CARES Act failed, and so that's a huge point about the house wiring. It didn't do her any good, and we need to, and we can have that as a lesson learned, and hopefully go back and fix that with her, but also looking in the future, not make sure that house wiring is covered, and even going back and refurbishing one. We had a home in an area that the house wiring, they had pulled all the copper out of the walls of her trailer, and so she had to go back and get that house wired with just conduit along the outside of the walls. It was $6,000 for that to be done, and the chapter helped her with that. But that's one of those things that's a constant thing, is to keep those homes safe, as they add buildings or add additions or things like that. They making sure they're not running the extension cords all over the place. and making sure what they have is safe for them. So that was a really good point. That's an ongoing thing, not just, it's a really serious thing now for us and a hurdle, but in the future that's still something that's ongoing. That concludes my presentation. I stand for questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Campbell, and thank you very much for your presentation from Jemez Mountain Electric Co-op. At this time, colleagues, let me go to the floor. I don't have anybody in the queue. Is there any comments or questions at this time for Ms. Campbell or Jemez Mountain Electric? Okay, well, if there's no comments or questions, Honorable Elmer Begay. Honorable Elmer Begay, you have a question?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Speaker. Members of the Naabik'íyáti committee, and also from Ross and the staff from NTUA. Good afternoon. I have a question. I know that I asked a question regarding the 115 kV line that was proposed to go to Dalcon to Naabik'íyáti substation to Dalcon. Right now, we know that there's another kV 115 and /6 to 9 kV substations that are putting up for, I guess, for the improvement or the development of Dalcon.
Elmer Begay?
Yeah.
Are you wanting to ask NTUA a question or Jemez Electric? Jemez Mountain.
Oh, okay.
We are on Jemez Mountain Electric Co-op. We just concluded the presentation.
Yeah, I thought they were still on the line because I tried to call back in at the follow-up question after I asked that question. So, okay. All right. I'm good then.
I know Raj and Mr. Kuntz are more than available if you want to contact them offline, Honorable Elmer Begay, to answer the question.
Okay.
But at this time, we're listening to a Jemez Mountain Electric Co-op. If there's any questions for Campbell.
All right. Thank you then.
Okay. I don't have anybody else in the queue for questions for Ms. Campbell or Jemez Mountain Electric. But Ms. Campbell, thank you very much for doing your presentation. We do have your presentation and the requested amount, and that's something that we'll be putting in forth. I know that's a live document too as well, and working with the chapters to see if there's anything else that can be done, especially for some of those areas of interest. But most importantly, thank you for your recommendations. I know that was put in your presentation too as well. So if there's no questions for you, Ms. Campbell, I appreciate the presentation here that you give to the Naabik'íyáti committee, and we will definitely, from the Speaker's office, be in touch with your office in order for us to go ahead and make sure that we can get Jemez Electric included as much as we can in this time around for these funds in order for us to get the best possible effort to reach as many of our Navajo people out there in order to get them service, whether that be power line or solar power. So again, thank you very much, Ms. Campbell, for your presentation from Jemez Mountain Electric Co-op.
Thank you. I do have, could I make one more comment?
Yes, go ahead.
On that, I really, I don't remember. I believe Harash was talking about the ARPA funds being available for past due power bills, and we'd be very interested in that. We have about 126,000 that's past due on the Navajo Nation right now, and the governor and the Public Regulation Commission have lifted the restrictions on disconnecting. We do have, they are requiring, and we are actually going above and beyond to work with people on getting installment arrangements, payment arrangements. And so we're, you know, we haven't begun disconnecting, and we want to do everything we can to avoid that. But if there's an opportunity for funds to be available for that, if you could make sure that you include the co-ops in that as well, so we can get that information to our members. Or if you need information from us to pay them directly, let us know, and we'll make sure that they're and even if that's something that's coming down the road, I would need to get with our general manager and stuff. But that may be something that we could maybe possibly hold off the disconnects on, possibly. And maybe if we knew funds were going to be available for that, that might be something we could consider for that area. But if you would just communicate that, and then we'll keep I'll keep looking into that to see what we can do for them out there for that too. So, and then once again, thank you for inviting Jemez Electric to the presentation. I know our general manager is very interested in supporting the Navajo Nation, and he's relatively new here, but you'll be hearing from him soon, and Mr. Michael Hastings. So thank you again, and we appreciate the opportunity, and we'll continue to make progress in getting people power. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Campbell. With that additional information on that, on the, I guess, I don't want to say shortfall, but on the funding to get individuals caught up, if you could send that information over to Ms. Yazzie, then we can go ahead and see what's the outcome of that. Thank you, Ms. Campbell.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Well, let's continue on down. Moving on, we do have item number D, Continental Divide Electric Co-op. Do I have Mr. Steve Morales and Ms. Debbie Oliver on the line? Or anybody from the CDEC? CDEC. Unfortunately, Continental Divide's unable to present today, but they did present the update, and they are working with the individual delegates and that are covering the Continental Divide Electric Co-op Initiative. So that initiative is still ongoing. It's a live document. We did have a internal meeting with Ms. Debbie Oliver yesterday, and she indicated that she was unable to make it today, but but we have that information. I guess we'll take that as a written report from her, and if there's any available items for her to have an immediate reach out, Ms. Oliver will be back in the office tomorrow to take any more further questions. So with that, continuing on down, item number E, Socorro Electric Co-op. Is Socorro on the line?
Good afternoon, Honorable Speaker, Honorable Delegates. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Charles Douglas. I work with engineering in Socorro Electric Cooperative. Before I share my screen and get to what we have in Alamo specifically, on hold for various reasons. I did want to mention that we currently are in the middle of a maintenance project. I thought this might put you guys at ease for some things along 169 and in Alamo itself to repair poles and things like that that have been needing some work. Currently 75 poles on 169 have been released this week for replacement, and we'll be working on Alamo next. So hopefully that helps put you guys at ease a little bit in terms of where you're shifting costs for maintenance. The co-op covers that. And I do encourage the chapter house to report anything else they might find that needs to be repaired or replaced in the area, and we'll do our best to take care of that. And the second point was we're willing to work with the chapter house to identify people that don't have power currently. I know sometimes that can be difficult to contact the co-op or to organize that. So we'd like to work with the chapter house to identify who in Alamo needs power and how to get them the service they need. Moving forward, one other thing I wanted to touch on, you guys had mentioned disconnects, and if there are funds available for that for Alamo, I know they'd be interested in using it as well. And I'll mention it to my general manager after this meeting so that he can coordinate with you guys on any possibility of helping the people out there get their accounts settled and handle the disconnects. And then finally here, let me see if I can get my screen shared. Here we go. So we currently have 5 projects in Alamo. One here, Alamo Navajo School Board, is just a 3-phase underground service drop. This is the most recent job we've received, and I don't see it being hung up for too long. Second on the list is an Alamo drought well. This has been hanging out there for a while. It's had some bumps with highway crossing permits and funding, and that's close to $59,000 for that job. It's a 1.5 miles of 3-phase overhead primary for an underground meter base to get that well going. A member, Doris Apache, is about 0.3 miles of overhead single-phase primary. That's been out there for a while too. I think the issue there was also funding. Sarah Secatero has a 0.5 mile of primary overhead single phase. That was as recent as last year at $37,974.19. And then finally, Bessie Apache at 1.5 miles of single phase primary overhead at $91,757.43. And with Bessie Apache, the chapter house may want to look into this solar thing you guys were talking about. She lives in a canyon near an arroyo, and getting power there is difficult. Part of why the expense is so high is because of where she's located. Solar may be a better option, but we are willing to bring primary line out to her if she needs it. The total cost for these 5 jobs currently is $220,940.93. Just to give you a ballpark. And this, as other people said, it's live document. It's ongoing. It can be updated, especially as we work with the chapter house to identify other members in the area that need power and work on getting that sorted out. That is the conclusion of my presentation. I'm open for questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Douglas, for that presentation. And thank you very much for your consideration and working together with the Alamo chapter, as this is the only area that Socorro Electric oversees. And thank you for that update on that, on the maintenance that you're continuing to work out there, on that effort for the people out there in Alamo, our relatives out there in Alamo. So with that, colleagues, is there any comments or questions right now for Socorro Electric Co-op? If there are no comments or questions at this time for Socorro Electric, I just want to say thank you very much, Mr. Douglas, for being on the line. There was a push for additional resources, especially to try to see how many of our families could, I guess, get additional services out there. I know that there's probably more than this, and I think working together with Chairman Hino, as he oversees the area representing the community of Alamo, I think the opportunity is to still see if we can still work together to get as many as or more individuals as possible who do have the current paperwork in place in order for them to go ahead and get electric hooked up to their facility. And like you said again, or what's continuously said, is that live option where these documents are something that we'll continue to work on and before we finalize it into the actual legislative process. So we got your presentation. So I thank you again, Mr. Douglas, for your efforts and really trying to help assist the community of Alamo, particularly getting that build out for them and in the areas of interest that you presented. So I think there was somebody that might have a question. If there's not, again, thank you very much, Mr. Douglas, for being with us today, and thank you very much for that presentation.
You're welcome, and thank you for having me. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to working with Alamo and the chapter house and getting everybody that we can connected to the grid and improve the quality of life out there for everyone. Thank you.
Great. That continuing on, item number F, City of Farmington. We present our presentation. I don't have a presentation from City of Farmington, but is the City of Farmington Utility Authority on the line?
They said they had a meeting, but
I know they stated
yes.
Oh, great.
Yes, Mr. Honorable Speaker, honorable delegates. This is Hank Adair, Director of the Farmington Electric Utility.
Oh, great. Thank you for being on the line. With that, the floor is yours if you have any updates at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Looking at our updates, and I apologize, I'm on via audio and not WebEx, so I have nothing to share, so I'll verbalize it, and then I'll get you a formal recommendation or update, if you will, to Ms. Yazzie after the meeting. Currently looking within the Farmington Electric Utility System, we see mostly within the Orfano chapter area that we currently have 12 customers that are representatives that would be of consideration. The way we do it is unique. We contribute to construction within this utility, and so looking at the 12 that we currently have, the sum of funds that are needed are $36,093 currently for those 12 candidates that we're seeing. I will tell you, as other utilities have mentioned, it's a live document. For example, Mr. Speaker, honorable delegates, we have in a phone call today with one of the customers, they said, well, my other family members too, for example, are looking for service as well. which we do not have paperwork in our processes right now, so we'll be working diligently to contact them and get them into the process. As noted by many, it's a live document. So currently, though, we have 12 that we have documented and have completed estimates for construction for totaling the amount noted is a little $36,000, almost $100 basically. We look forward to the process and excited to have the potential to hook up these customers with power. And I would echo what I've heard from other utilities, very similar with Farmington Electric. We are looking at delinquent accounts and disconnects and something that may happen in the summer. So working hard not to have that situation happen. And so would look to consideration as well as you've heard from other utilities. So with that, I'll close my audio presentation, Mr. Speaker, and I'll get you a formal recommendation.
Thank you for that presentation, and I would really appreciate that formal recommendation, because that's something we're going to need to utilize in order for us to have the justification, in order for us to move forward. If there's an appropriation that will happen, which most likely will happen, and again, that's something we'll need to calculate into the overall formula. So the sooner the better. That would be great in order for us to go ahead and make sure that that's something that we can work together with. So again, thank you very much, and thank you very much for helping assist and providing power to our Navajo families up there.
Thank you, sir.
Colleagues, let me see if there's any questions at this time. Is there any questions at this time?
Speaker?
Yes.
Speaker, this is Delegate Charles Newman.
Yes, Madam Chair, Charles Newman.
Speaker, I just want to say that I know that we were talking about electric hookups, and we're talking about, yesterday we were talking about water, but I know that I believe it's the county has been assisting the Navajo Nation with the trash services. I'm wondering if that's something that can also be included in this presentation as well. It's not the city of Farmington, but it is the San Juan County that has been assisting with the transfer services. I believe we do have a contract with them, and I don't know when that contract is going out, but if that's something that can be included, because it does cover, I believe there is a transfer station at the Burnham Tohalina intersection. There's also one in Shiprock, and then there's another one in Upper Fruitland. And they have, I know the Navajo Nation has had difficulties keeping up with payments there, but again, I'm hoping that maybe something can be presented on that. Thank you, Speaker.
Yes, Madam Chair. I'll look at the calendar, see what we can do to add them in on presentation day. Maybe when sanitation comes back too as well, we can include them in on that day for a formal update. With that, colleagues, is there any questions at this time for the City of Farmington's Utility Authority? If there's not, thank you very much for being with us this afternoon. And thank you very much again for the our verbal presentation, and we look forward to that written presentation. And again, as soon as you could get that to Ms. Ghazi, I appreciate that.
Absolutely, will do, Mr. Speaker and honorable delegates.
All right. Well, thank you again. Have a good day. That, colleagues, we come to a question coming to the end of the presentations today. I know in talking with Navajo Tribal Utility Authority, there was numerous questions, and I know that in that update, if there's immediate action that you don't see, Arash and Mr. Kuntz have indicated that more than welcome to contact them. If you're looking at that document that was given out this morning at 10:15, 10:30, and it gives a formal update on where we're looking at and trying to what NTUA's position is on prioritizing Can you turn that one down? It's like blast. It's prioritizing the position that they're wanting to move forward with and making sure that we go ahead and have all our ducks in a row to try to finalize a power infrastructure plan. I know that with that, there were some recommendations too as well on working with the other co-ops and having these co-ops really try to work one hand on hand with the Navajo Tribal Utility Authority as they have done before. And I think that's an opportunity that NTUA has stated that they do not anticipate any hardship on their end to continue that effort in trying to make sure that we get as many individuals set up with power. I know that the update presentation today will have some more meaningful dialogue, particularly with the efforts that are being put together. As indicated, these are live documents and these are continuously being updated. And I think the number one thing that a message was sent back is that if there's anybody else that's looking for immediate power or looking for that immediate hookup or recommendation to get on this listing, have them contact NTUA. And I think that's something where it can be utilized in order for us to make sure that we're helping assist that too as well, whether that be through the speaker's office or through colleagues or individual selves, trying to gather that information through your LDAs and giving that information over to any one of the utility authorities that were mentioned here today, so that we can go ahead and get as many people on the listing as we can in order for us to build out this power infrastructure for our Navajo people. So colleagues, if there's no other further questions, I know that the goal again was to make sure that we're trying to finalize and pinpoint an exact possible, probably not an exact, but a more of a refined amount of what we're going to be utilizing and trying to push out and making sure that we have enough funding to build out this power line infrastructure for the Navajo Nation and for our people across the whole, all 4 states. So with that, colleagues, if there's no other comments, we are going down to announcements and then close of session. Time now is 1:39 p.m. Is there any further announcements tomorrow? We do have our broadband presentation, and I think NTUA and Sacred Winds and Choice will be on the presentation, and then an update, formal update from Mr. Chris Vicente in the Telecom Commission, and then Frontier Communications, Doty, Arcadia, and Arcadian actually, and then Cellular One. So tomorrow's going to be a long day, more of a busy day. I know that there'll be numerous questions, so thank you very much, colleagues. If there's no other announcements at this time, I think that there is some committee meetings still going on right now, but thank you for allowing this discussion today, particularly trying to get as much information as we can to set these work sessions up so you can answer as many questions as can be possibly asked to get those answers so that we're putting together a relatively enough broad package so that we can serve our Navajo people again. So again, thank you everyone that's on the line. There's no announcements. It's 1:40 p.m. We can close this work session out. Thank you very much, colleagues, for being on the line. Yeah, have a good day and stay safe. We'll see you guys tomorrow at 10 a.m. Go ahead.
Have a good day.